We'll call the Indiana Recycling Market Development Board meeting to order February 15th, 2023. And welcome everyone. Thank you for visiting again. Who do we have online, Deanna?
All the board members are present here. And my camera. It's my camera, I'm sorry. It's deciding it doesn't want to work properly. There
You
we
need to go through your.
go. I do need to go through the Zoom script, yeah,
Or-
Zoom housekeeping. So. Thank you for joining us today. For those on Zoom, I'm Deanna Garner, Recycling Market Development Program Manager for Items Office of Program Support. All microphones are currently muted. For attendance tracking, please take a moment to write your name and affiliation in the chat box. We will be taking questions and comments from participants at today's meeting. All participants will be able to unmute themselves and ask questions or make comments at appropriate times. If you have a question or technical issue during the presentation, please use the raise hand or chat feature. To access raise hand or chat, at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on your device, you'll see a menu bar. You may have to move your mouse or touch the screen for the menu bar to pop up. In the middle of that menu, there is a chat icon, which you can click on to show that chat dialog. You should also see the raise hand option. Please utilize the raise hand or chat features if you have any questions or comments, and you'll be called upon at the appropriate time. For those on the phone, if you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. We will call on you at the appropriate times. When called upon, you'll need to unmute your phone by pressing *6. If any members of the media have joined us, please utilize the chat feature or email media@idem.in.gov if you have any questions or if you would like to schedule an interview. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on IDEM's website, recycle.in.gov. With that, I'll turn the meeting back over to Bruce Burrow.
Thank you, Deanna. Again, welcome to everyone. We have really no transcripts to approve. This is a continuation of the February 2nd, I believe, meeting that we had to review the applications. At this time, my question to the board is, I think we have the opportunity to ask any questions of any of the applicants that we have reviewed over the last 2 weeks. So does any board member have any questions for any of the applicants? Mr. Garrett.
Do you want to just delve into the projects? Is that what I used to do, or do you want to give? The last time we judged a number of these proposed projects as being ineligible, primarily because they didn't meet the criteria of being a pilot project. I think we probably ought to give them an opportunity to respond if they think now that they meet the qualifications of the pilot project, tell us why. Because there were a number of them last time we said you don't meet it. So at least from my perspective, if any of them feel that they now qualify as a pilot project and can justify that, I think we'll give them an opportunity to say so.
Mr. Guerin would like to inquire of the applicants their reasoning for feeling that they are a pilot project. With that, Cascade Asset Management, do we have a representative?
Yes, sir.
Could you explain why you feel that your project is a pilot project, please?
Well, front or is here okay?
Can you hear there? I'm sorry, you're gonna get your leg work done.
I need to get my steps in. Almost bathing suit season, right?
All right, so, yeah, we were, just trying to bring in some new technology due to the, like I said, second one in the country. produces a really clean waste stream. You know, dramatically increases our throughput to be able to service more material, you know, higher landfill diversion rate and much cleaner. Wow, commodities, couldn't think of the word commodity, much cleaner commodity stream at the end of the process. So that's why we felt that it was, you know, a pilot project. It's brand new technology. It's only been in existence for a couple of years in Europe. Doing great things over there. So I like to, I mean, they bring it, you know, bring it to the Midwest, bring it to Indianapolis, and yeah, hopefully, you know, spread it out everywhere. So, I don't know that I have anything that's, you know, a revelation from our last presentation or from our application packet.
In your opinion,
yourself, please.
I'm sorry, sir.
Could you identify?
James Ellison. I'm the general manager of the Indianapolis facility for Cascade Asset Management.
may I ask, in your opinion, what percentage of flat panel monitors are recycled accordingly?
I would say there's a high percentage that are not landfilled, but the way they're recycled is dirty. It does not produce very clean waste streams and has a very low percentage of remarketable materials at the end of it. So, I can't, honestly, I can't give you a landfill diversion rate right off the top of my head. I could seek that out. I know it's time to vote, but, this technology allows us to produce a much cleaner commodity stream that puts that feedstocks back into other manufacturing that we currently cannot do.
Thank you, sir.
Last time, in my notes, I had asked what was the increase in recycling rate compared to the existing technology for recycling, which I believe they're currently mostly just shredded, whereas yours is disassembly. Do you have that information?
I do not. I apologize. It's a tough number to calculate because there's so many different, I guess, waste streams with some of the other folks in our industry. They just shred a lot of that stuff all together. So it doesn't produce, it's a difficult comparison to have.
Oh, that they're shredding mixed waste, not just
Correct.
flat screens. Okay.
Correct. They shred all at the same time.
And yes,
A question I probably should have asked last time. The proposal that you guys put forward had a lease or some sort of service agreement. And there was some discussion of the depreciation expense, and
Sure.
so I was curious if you could explain that
Yeah.
a little bit.
It's almost like software as a service. This is more like demanufacturing as a service. Because the technology is as new as it is, there aren't any local folks who can help support us. So the manufacturer actually has 24-hour real-time support. And they monitor all of the sensors and the activity on the machine to be able to tell us if it's doing everything correctly. So it's basically like a service agreement on the equipment. If there's anything that goes wrong with it, they fix it, they train us, they help us establish all of these things.
So are you actually purchasing equipment or leasing?
At the end of the lease, we own it.
Okay.
So there's that service agreement.
That's the part that we figure out.
Yeah, because it's the robotics and the behind the scenes part of it are way far more advanced than than I am. So just in the interest of it not killing itself.
Yeah.
Or, polluting things, they monitor all of that stuff for us and can shut it down or adjust things as needed.
We also, I'm sorry, we also have Neil Peters. I made,
Michelle?
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Online, he has his hand raised. So Neil, I think you can unmute yourself if you wanted to add.
Great. Yes, thank you, Deanna. Can you hear me?
We
Okay,
can.
good. Thanks. I'm actually working out of our headquarters in Wisconsin. I'm one of the owners of Cascade, so working very closely with James on this. I can update a couple things on one of the earlier questions about the diversion rate. So as James was saying, the difference between the current technology that's highly automated is the shredding of the materials. And then it's actually the case where if there are LCD mercury lamps, the mercury could be actually just released within the process and it's diluted. So you have lower enough mercury concentrations that it's not an OSHA issue, but you're actually still expressing this mercury within to the waste stream and it's being disposed. Plastics are getting ground up, losing some of their value and such. So this is almost more of an automated manual disassembly. So rather than using an individual to do it, we can increase our throughput and still get clean streams of material. So whole plastic, the CCFL lamps that have the mercury. And so the research that comes out from Europe on how this machine is being used, they're getting about just over a 95% recovery rate. And in the response to question 3 on the application, we break down the different commodity streams that we generate. So there's about 10 different commodity streams that are generated from this process that are clean materials that actually get recycled. Plastic is actually going to go straight to Plastics Recycling Incorporated in Indianapolis for recovery. So that's great. It actually is a domestic and local manufacturer. So yes, it's detoxifying the material because it takes the mercury out of the waste stream that might go to unprocessors. And it's also generating a much higher recovery rate than shredding, which might be at about 50% typically, because there's other materials that end up as contaminants to downstream processors.
From a leasing standpoint, is it a 5-year lease and you guys buy out after that 5 year for $1, or how does that lease work?
That's exactly right. It's 5 years. And then we might have some maintenance that continues afterwards, but the equipment will be ours.
Do they, the additional after the 5 years, as far as an additional piece, will they still help you guys with the programming and anything and monitoring? Is it going to be an additional fee on top of it?
Yeah, and that's what we're expecting to cover from the revenue we're generating from processing the equipment and generating the commodities. So the grant application is essentially for the capital equipment initial costs. And then we expect to make this completely self-sustaining and self-funding afterwards.
You mentioned that plastics recycling was one of the end market users of the material. Do you have other, this is one of our requirements for the statute is looking at Indiana-based end markets. Do you have any other Indiana-based end markets that you can identify for the material?
Yeah, the second largest component is just going to be our ferrous metals that are coming out of the backs of a lot of these materials, either also ferrous and aluminum. So those are staying close with Farnsworth Metals, OmniSource. They're going to be in Indiana. And we have existing relationships with them, also cables and such. Circuit boards are going to be, that's the valuable component right now. They are going into other developed countries for processing, such in Belgium or Japan, because there aren't really any great precious metal smelters in Indiana. But otherwise, the mercury is getting processed locally in Wisconsin at Veolia Environmental Services. So they process these hazardous wastes.
So just sitting here thinking about, how it would be a pilot project, and I hate using the words getting on, but the mindset behind it is because it's new technology and it's not introduced into the United States yet, that's how you're classifying it as a pilot project.
That is correct. It's going to take, yes, a new innovative automated method for processing televisions, monitors, and laptop screens.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from board members? Hearing none, I thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Any board member have questions for Cuvia Recycling? Seeing none, we can move on. The next applicant is Denny Excavating Incorporated.
Yeah, I'm joining via Zoom.
Thank you, welcome.
Yeah, this
Any
is
board
Brody.
member-
Yeah, this is Brody Duncan. I presented to you 2 weeks ago as well. Let me open my camera up here. Okay.
Any board member have any questions for Denny Excavating? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Bear with us here a moment. Our next applicant is Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Questions? Seeing none. Next is Plastic Recycling Incorporated. Questions? Seeing none, we can move on to Workforce Incorporated, DBA Recycle Force. Thank you for attending. No questions. The next is Republic Polymers 2 LLC.
Mr. Chairman, I have questions.
Mr. Guerin. Please state your name and Terry will ask you the question of the world.
My name is Joe Riconosciuto. I work with Tim Outman, who was here last time, and Chris Nye, is here now as well.
The last time, during your presentation, I specifically told you that I think as written, your application did not qualify as a pilot project. And one of the reasons I gave you was that it was so expansive. And there was just no way that, well, first off, you're asking for land acquisition, which I don't think we've ever paid for in the past. And it just wasn't nailed down close enough that I didn't see anything in there that specifically would qualify as a pilot project. So can you, I know you resubmitted information and you have decreased your scope of your project down to one piece of equipment.
Yep.
Which on the surface scenario looks like it would qualify you then as a pilot project. Can you give us some more expansive information on that?
Absolutely. So just want to make sure everybody saw the revised request. Tighten it up quite a bit. And yes, as you mentioned, it is now specific to a kind of a subcomponent of the system. And really what it's about is the color black. It's an odd quirk of residential recycling that if you look at black polyethylene, polypropylene PET bales or colored bales, you don't see black at all. It's just it's a gap in the capabilities of existing infrastructure. And what we are hoping to do is install equipment that can see that at the Polymer Center location here in Indiana. And kind of reprogram the way that we funnel material to that facility so that instead of asking our existing equipment to see the black, we're asking it to see the opposite, basically. That's kind of a trick. So we're reversing the way that we operate our system today.
And that piece of equipment, when you first made the application, was going to go in the Polymer Center. There's a timing issue there. If you are granted your request, would that piece of equipment go to your facility on 96th Street? If you can't get it to the Polymer Center, is that where that piece of equipment will go?
Yeah, I mean, we'll find a way to put it to use one way or another. It's maximally beneficial at the Polymer Center, to be sure. But yes, absolutely, we'll get the thing installed within the 2-year window.
With the placement of this equipment at that facility, more or less guaranteed that that Polymer Center will come to Indiana, specifically probably central Indiana?
Yes, to put a finer point on it, we're hoping to place it in Indianapolis proper.
So whether or not you get the piece of equipment, the Polymer Center itself will still be constructed.
Will still be constructed, yes, it'll have a gap in capability.
How many jobs would be generated by this piece of equipment itself, and how many jobs would be created by the Polymer Center itself?
So the Polymer Center more broadly, I should know that off the top of my head, it's somewhere, Chris, you may know, it's 65 to 70 jobs, somewhere in that neighborhood. And this piece of equipment is about 2 jobs. And that's just maintenance and programming, et cetera.
can you get this piece of equipment up and running within the 1 to 2 year time frame?
Absolutely. We buy a lot of equipment and we've spoken to the manufacturer and we've kind of got a hold on it. We've got a manufacturing slot reserved so that we can expedite.
Do they give you a lead time on it?
Yeah, we expect that we could get the equipment in Q1 of next year, and then there's a brief installation time, but we're about a year out. Which is actually fast today.
Yeah, totally understand. On your side of the trustee.
You mentioned that this new equipment would reduce the levels of contamination and therefore increase the quality of the product. What do you know what that reduction in contamination is expected to be?
Yeah, it is measured by percentage or. It's probably a 10% reduction. The thing in the world of post-consumer plastic is. Everybody sort of has a binary threshold beyond which contamination makes it untenable for a new use. So we don't think the measure is necessarily what percentage so much as just how many more future applications are candidates for recycling. So that's really what the broader project is about for us is not just capturing more plastic, although that's hugely important, but then assuring that it finds its way into a like item wherever possible so that it can be recycled again, rather than a one-use durable that is better than not recycling, but it's sort of still end of life. It still requires extraction.
And is the anticipated annual diversion rate still the same? I think it was 80,000 tons.
It is.
If the piece of equipment goes to the 96th Street facility, I don't want to pin you down on a site for the Polymer Center. But does it stand to reason then that the placement of that center will need to be fairly close to the 96th Street?
It's diminishing returns to be sure, the further you have to go. Yes,
I got a question about where you're gonna be getting your material in the process. Because I kind of misunderstood the legislation. I thought the pilot program is gonna be, excuse me, for around the Indy area. Will you take any recycling from outside counties, say clear north is Allen County, anything like that?
we will, and one of the challenges of this type of material is just scale. And so really what this factory achieves is putting enough like materials under one roof that can be picked through thoroughly. So, for example, our recycling center in Fort Wayne, it's a small facility. It's a small community. It's not one that's growing. It's not one that will support the cost of investing in similar equipment. And so, yeah, the goal is to make it sort of a magnet to pull this material in for Indiana manufacturers.
Okay. And so I'm gonna recuse myself from voting on this project since I handle the contract for Fort Wayne. So some of our material, if it's gonna go to you, I probably shouldn't vote on this, so.
Yep.
You'll need to file a sheet of paper with Michael French.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I could just add one piece, and this is Chris Nye, the area president for the market. I think why this makes sense for the outline of the legislative project is that it allows us to look at Marion County first and amplify what many team members here and board members talked about last time, and that was the lower recycling rate here in Marion County. And so we will look here first on how does this equipment allow us to go to the city as well as other cities within Marion County to accelerate different materials that just can't be recycled today, which is why it's a pilot project, because it's not being done. It's a throughput that goes to residual. And then for scale, Marion County then gets to be a conduit and a facilitator of other markets more broadly to create an open opportunity to allow this similar type of recycling from other counties, other markets, other regions to again allow further recycling. That's just not happening. markets. So it is central to Marion County, and that allows the opportunity to accelerate that more broadly.
Anybody else?
I'm gonna ask that question again with the Indiana-based end markets. So, I know you said 2 Indiana manufacturers, but you have guaranteed Indiana end markets for this material.
Absolutely. I mean, the fundamental nature of plastic recycling is that demand far outstrips supply. And it's a matter of producing sufficient volume of consistent quality, but this will be oversubscribed with Indiana manufacturers.
Any other questions?
So from a pilot standpoint, it's basically we start at Marion County, or what you guys are trying to do, start at Marion County. Let's say we establish it for 2 to 3 years. Then you take the concept, we go statewide with it to help the state, but the initial pilot piece of it is going to be helping Marion County get the diversion rates up.
This puts Marion County at the absolute top of capabilities anywhere in North America that I know of.
Seeing no other questions, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the last applicant is Waste Management of Indiana LLC. Does the board members have any questions?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me? This is Wes Smith with WM on Zoom. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mr. Smith, good morning. Thank you. for
Morning.
joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So yeah, again, first off, I'm Wes Smith with WM and thank you for having us back. I know that there was questions at the last board meeting, and I think by the time we got towards the end of the day, I think that the whole pilot question had everybody kind of discombobulated a little bit to where, I don't know that we really got to focus a whole lot on our particular project. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate with you as the board and what our proposal truly means. So, I know in our proposal, we mentioned using the grant funds to upgrade equipment to give WM better technology to increase our recovery of the marketable commodities from the residual waste stream that's coming out of the Indianapolis MRF facility. However, I think the main focus for us, we want to put out there is that we're really wanting to improve our efficiency and expand on capacity and our capabilities at that facility. And being able to do that with this new innovative equipment will allow us to collect the data that we need on that main focus and help WM drive towards more of our bigger goal of positioning Marion County as the epicenter of a circular economy in the state of Indiana. WM wants to help cultivate and develop an infrastructure that includes circular economy, future growth, and the sustainability for tomorrow. And really, WM believes that we can accomplish this and get it done by using what we call a hub and spoke model that puts Marion County as the hub and being the leader and the centerpiece for the state of Indiana. But really, that can't be accomplished in our minds without really starting with this smaller scale facility that we have at Indy MRF that we've purchased from Ray's Trash Service. But we have to make sure that when in this small scale that we put the right plan together with the right innovative equipment to accomplish the long-term goal. I think for everybody here is to get the participation rate in Indianapolis and in Indiana to a higher goal, to a higher percentage. And so, we want to help accomplish that long-term goal by positioning Marion County as the epicenter of the circular economy in the state of Indiana.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members?
If you could just speak briefly to the specific equipment, the optical sorters and the air booster, is there something unique or innovative about that technology?
Yeah, the newer versions of it, right? So we currently have some of those that are outdated in terms for today. So just some of the improvements with it is, that the optimal sorter uses cameras and processing units. And in the newer units, they have, better, higher revolutional cameras that identify plastics more efficiently, allowing them to separate out the material better, as well as the faster processors allow it to process the information faster, so that you can be more efficient in what it's producing.
Okay, and while I think it's clear that that would be an upgrade for the existing facility, is that technology already being utilized by others in the country?
That particular, those particular versions are probably being used somewhere throughout, but there's constant change in that technology. Now, whether, each unit out there is exactly the same, each year in and year out, I don't know if that could be an accurate statement or not, because there's constant change in those units as we learn more and we get better with our technology.
Thank you.
Can you talk about, Wes, how this new equipment does it increase, decrease, or stay the same on a employee labor standpoint?
So our goal on this is it's going to increase, because the opportunity that we see possibly with this is to add additional shifts because of the efficiency that we're going to gain. So we are putting in place that if we can get this equipment, that we are going to up the amount of heads that we have and the shifts that we currently have at that facility. So we're potentially could be adding somewhere around 40 to 45 employees.
You plan on increasing the efficiency. Will that actually increase what percent of product will you be bringing in that will go up because of this? Will it give you an idea to get more?
I think we so the goal, the opportunity or the goal here is to reduce our residual waste by 50%. So, we currently produce around 777 tons is what we have in the report. So we're looking at being able to get 385 tons currently off the material that we currently have out of the waste stream. And then if we double shifts, you can essentially double that amount. And then if we're able to expand on that with additional volume coming into the facility, then that number will continue to grow.
Any other questions?
Just to follow up on that and confirm, so the estimated annual increase in diverted tonnage is 9,574 estimated.
Yeah, according to the report, I think that's for the 2 years that they put on there, that I think there was a 2-year box check for that on the application. Yeah, the pilot duration of the pilot project, they had 2 years. So that's the 2 years total.
Seeing no other questions, I thank you very much.
Bruce,
Thank you.
Ask a question. Can I ask plastic recycling? Can I shift back? up to
Absolutely,
plastic
Greg.
recycling? That's okay. Plastic recycling.
Brandon should be on Zoom. Up in Fred's ear.
I'm Fred Reed with Plastic Recycling, and as Deanna said, Brennan Shaw should be on the Zoom.
Good, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I know you sent some information out. I think the biggest takeaway that we had from previous to now is the defining of the pilot side of this application. So could you just talk about how this new technology would be defined as a pilot program for us?
Well, primarily because it's not being done right now. Brandon actually is on site at Omni this morning and tomorrow, testing some of the processes and some of the equipment that we're hoping to implement. This is a pilot program in, like I said, in the fact that it's not being done right now, not being done in the country at all necessarily. One site in Kansas City is doing some of the processes, And so Brandon is testing some of the process at Omni right now, just to filter and separate the material. And so if we can get this set up, which we think we can, integrate it into some of the equipment we have doing the read electronic processing, then that will validate the process.
And then the time frame, because a lot of this, you were in the initial interview, it was a lot of materials coming from the UK or the technology. So,
Well, the materials all coming from
the technology of the new,
coming from Europe.
separation.
Well, a lot of the technology is coming from Europe.
Europe, right?
And China. So that is coming. We believe that is within the next 7 months to 8 months, we can get the equipment in. The longest lead time is the building. We have the land and the building, putting the building up for the final structure will take the longest lead time. And we've talked to the builder about that as well. We had final, I think, we have some information that Deanna got on that process as well. So the builder thinks that he can get that taken care of pretty easily.
Just to clarify, there will be none of this $4 million spent on the structure itself, the building.
Well, part of the project is the building, but I think 7 million of our budget is for the building. Out of the $14.5 million project, 7 million is building,
And equipment,
is the rest of that.
I see. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. One comment I would like to make after reviewing the multitude of these applications, I believe each and every one of them, if not qualified for this grant, would definitely qualify for a Recycling Market Development Board grant. So I would, should you not be awarded today, I would recommend highly that you consider applying to the Recycling Market Development Board annual grant that we have. With that said,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Guerin?
not just the Recycle Market Development Board opportunities, but there are efforts underway, and I think Deanna's probably wants to talk about this later. It would be appropriate here just to mention also that there are efforts underway to make sure that we don't have this problem again. If there's another round of funding, hopefully this question of pilot projects will not be a limiting factor, just to say that. And I would concur with the chairman's comment, all of these were good applications. It may not just be the right time.
The reality is that the bill actually tied our hands a bit with regard to how and who we can award this first round of monies to. And so we're hoping that House Bill 1512 will give us a bit more flexibility. With that, how would the board like to proceed?
Chairman,
Mr. Guerin?
I have recused myself from considering the plastics recycling application. But that notwithstanding, on the remaining grants that are before us, I just would give my intention to make a motion at the appropriate time to fund the Republic project for $2 million.
Are you making that motion now, Terry?
If it's appropriate to do it now, I would do so.
I'm going to have to turn the meeting over to Kelly.
Okay, so you are making a motion?
I'll make a motion to fund the Republic project for an amount of $2 million.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Okay. Discussions next one. Okay. Discussions or any comments from the board?
I felt out of all the projects presented that the Republic project met the requirements most closely. So I do agree.
Any other discussion? Okay, then we will take a vote. We have 3 people who are recused on that one. Let's see. Sparrow,
I'm recused.
recused. Heckman,
Yes,
let's see, Mr. Noonan. And Darren
Yes.
and Westler Henry.
yes.
See, Matt, you were recused on this one.
Correct.
And what else do I have? You were recused as well.
Yes.
All right.
Can you vote?
Sandy,
Yes. Maybe you should join my.
okay,
minutes.
and I will also approve. So we have 3 that are recused and then remaining have approved for $2 million for Republic Polymers. So the motion carries. All right,
So I have a question, and if it's okay, since there's $2 million left, I'd like to ask Pat, and Plastics Recycling has asked for the $4 million. Is there consideration with plastic recycling based on that there's $2 million left? Are they? Would they be willing to accept a lesser amount than what they've applied for?
And can we do that as a board with this grant money? I don't know if we can, I don't know.
Well, it just, I think that before we kind of talk about theirs, I think that we would know is,
Can there,
are they willing to accept a lesser amount? That'd be a question to plastic.
I guess the question in front is, will your project be able to move forward with a lesser amount of $2 million?
We debated that whole concept, that whole question quite a bit, and even though the Shaw family has and continues to support the company, they will take and appreciate taking $2 million if we can get that. If it comes to something significantly less than that, then I think I probably need to go back and talk to them a little bit more. But since we're a private company, everything you can give us certainly helps.
All right, thank you very much.
So with that being said, I looked at plastic recycling as, in the ones that I was able to be a part of as, new innovative technology, bringing, economic development, Indiana manufacturing, and also meets the criteria in the best suited that. So I would like to make a motion that the remaining balance of the $2 million proposed to, plastics recycling.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Lutz to award plastic recycling incorporated $2 million for their pilot project on recovering mixed plastics out of auto fluff. And do I have a second? Motion on the floor, do I have a second? Going once, going twice. Hearing no second, would you like to amend your motion, Mr. Lutz?
I think it's dead, right?
It's dead now.
So again, this is one of the most difficult grant cycles I've ever been a part of. Not because the projects are not good, to the earlier point. I'm more interested in terms of thinking about what is more innovative. And again, in that vein of pilot, I would be more interested in seeing Cascade receive their $1,090,000 request. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts or comments regarding that one.
Kelly, that was kind of where I was gonna go, but I couldn't say anything because of the ties to, with recycle, with the plastic. And with the Cascade piece of it, with the business I'm in, we shred the LCDs. And I understand what they're trying to do is going to be a cleaner, and it isn't innovative. It is kind of groundbreaking in the United States because of the research that I know of in my background, so I would prefer to move with them.
Yeah, I think being the second in the country and based off of what we heard, going from a 50% to a 95% recycling rate, I think it sounds like a really a bigger leap in terms of progress and technology and more fitting with the pilot concept.
I guess,
My only question with that is the impact of market volume. And that's, I guess, that's where I was going at it when I was looking at, automobile material. And that's where my balance was at, is from your granted, everybody's got flat panel. But the plastics out of the automobile industry, the bang for the buck in the greater scale.
Right.
And the impact to markets, impact to diversion overall, impact to, doing what the goals are set in Marion County and what can bring the bang for the best. That's where I was at.
If I can ask Cascade if they would be able to move forward with the project with a lesser amount.
When I come up.
Mhm.
If I could defer to Neil Peter J. Show, who's on Zoom, as the CEO.
Yeah, I think that, when we ran the numbers on a couple different scenarios on how this would work, we're looking at the, 24 months of funding, fully funding the maintenance and the equipment under the project. That's what the grant does. In the interest of trying to get as many projects funded as possible, we could accept to go a little bit lower because we will supplement some of the value. I would say if we did around kind of the way we crunch the numbers, at least $900,000, that would make it, we could cover the rest through some of the revenues from some of the fees until we get this working in sustainable fashion. So take a little bit more than 100,000 off.
Thank you.
may I ask, when looking at the sustainability of this project, your grant request of even at 900,000 is still going to be somewhere around $500 a panel or a unit, if you will, based on the 2,000 flat panel screens at $1,090,000. You're at $545 a unit to recycle.
Was that 2,000 tons or 2,000 screens? 2,000 tons.
I'm sorry. And my math is flawed.
Yeah, that'd be really expensive recycling. I hope we don't have to do that, but yeah, we're looking at a throughput of about 166,000 flat panels per year. It's about, again, I definitely understand, and this is kind of the issue with e-waste. From a volume perspective, it's not the most significant contributor to landfills, but from a toxicity perspective, it is very significant. It is the largest hazardous waste contributor to landfills. So As far as the bang for the buck, being able to keep this material out of landfills does have a significant impact on the environment. So we're looking at about 5 million pounds of flat panel monitors we can process once this is fully operational, 5 million pounds per year.
What's the board's pleasure?
Can
Mr. Guerin?
I know when fluorescent bulbs were a big issue in the landfill. The concern was that the amount of mercury from the bulbs would increase significantly in the landfill. But research showed that it wasn't getting into the landfills because when the fluorescent bulbs were broken, it all became, most of it became atmospheric. So it wasn't an issue. I'll ask the same question with these flat screen panels. Are you really capturing all this mercury or some of it becoming atmospheric?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's the process is to be able to pull the lamps out intact. The lamps will be sent intact to a mercury retort facility, where within that controlled environment, the mercury will be recovered. And so the goal is to keep the lamps intact and not have the atmospheric, issues with the mercury contamination. And of course, if it's not an issue with it going into the landfill, if it goes into the air, that's another issue as well. So we want to prevent both.
Any other questions?
Not for Cascade. But I have another question for PRI. Which is, you've already been asked about taking a lesser amount. Would you be able to work with 1.1 million?
Yeah, I'll jump in if you can hear me.
Randy on the phone. Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to. I couldn't guarantee we'd go through with it at 1.1 million. So just got to be honest, it's a huge investment we're making, and I don't want to guarantee anything.
Okay, thank you.
It appears we're down to about 3. 1 awarded and 2 still in debate. And we have to look at the biggest return that we can gain. And I will tell you, as an old landfill manager, anything that you can do in recovering 60% of bottle fluff is a huge win. It is a challenging material. There's a consistent flow and then never ending supply, if you will. I do find the flat panel screen project innovative with the new equipment. But in looking at that equipment, I kind of find it along the lines of upgrading optical sorters or different equipment on processing lines. So I'm torn. Any other comments from board members?
I will go back and reiterate then again what I said, and appreciate that, Bruce, on your not only your tutelage, but your legendary experiences in our industry. Again, I go back to kind of gives what gives us the most impact. And when we read this, the 1226 bill that's in the law, and those are the things that were brought out. Gives the most Indiana economic impact, the most in the diversion type thing. And so when I look at these two, they're great, they're good. I would encourage everybody, even that might not get awarded today, is relook at our normal grant process, as well as a proposal that's out that we could be back here again next year, right?
is so I'll go back and follow back up to my original one is I think plastic recycling at the $2 million gives us the overall most impact of the amount of money that's available.
So you're reintroducing your motion?
Now, I'm just making a comment right now, and I'll let other ones make the comment. I don't want to take the floor right now. Unless there's no more questions or comments.
Mr. Krebs?
Plastics recycling, they applied for quite a few grants, seems like. How many grants have we given them so far? Do we know?
That would be a question for Deanna.
Sorry, I just was having a side conversation. What was the question?
Plastics recycling, how many grants have they received so far through?
I believe it's for Tom is, I think it's for,
In varying amounts.
yeah.
Yeah. Some of the grants were a lot less and they've been very successful, implementing all the projects that we have done with them. And
So they followed through with
Yeah.
every project. Thank you.
I just worry we keep giving money to the same company. It could. Some of the other companies might quit putting in if they see one company's getting a lot of them every year, every couple of years, so. I don't know if that makes a difference. I'm just,
And I guess this is very different than our normal grant cycle, and so whereas when you look at the estimated tonnage to divert. PRI has a significant amount that they're expecting, which is wonderful. But again, thinking about the goal of this being a pilot project that is able to be expanded and replicated. That big of an investment, how many other companies in the future are going to be able to replicate that? That's again where I go back to Cascade. I think that, yes, the tonnage is lesser. It's also a lesser dollar amount, but I think it has a lot more future replicability, whatever the word is. And that's partly why I think I prefer to see that one get funded. In our normal grant cycle, it would be definitely, this is PRI has a great project. It's a good return in terms of the estimated tonnage diverted. But I don't know how replicable it is.
I can comment from experience. If they can recover ABS and eliminate 60% of their auto fluff from going to a landfill, it will be replicated. Just because of the expense of disposing of auto fluff in mass quantities. I mean, I can look south, and maybe not within state boundaries, but there's large auto shredders in Louisville, and all of their auto fluff is landfilled. Every bit of it.
Bruce, would you be willing to take comments from the public at this time? If they have something.
I had them on the agenda a little later, but certainly be more than happy to take comments from the public.
Allison Mitchell, if you want to unmute yourself, I know you had something you'd like to share.
Good morning, Allison.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my comment. I can just read what I put in the chat to the board. I just want to strongly urge the board to consider the purpose of these funds under the context by which this pilot project and this very different grant cycle intentionally was created. And that is to address the abysmal curbside recycling rate for households and for the general public in Marion County for the benefit of the entire central Indiana region. I hear you guys talking a lot about e-waste and about other business or industry related waste. And just wanted to make sure that you're aware and considering the context by which this entire pilot project was created. And I understand that it's very different from your traditional pilot or your traditional grant cycle, and that was very intentional from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Garrett?
Allison, in all due respect, I think we are aware.
Sometimes it seems painfully aware.
Okay, it's just that the discussions to date so far have not indicated a focus on or a deference towards things that would further or improve recycling rates for individuals, households, curbside or drop off or otherwise. So I'm just noting that this is not feeling different, and it should feel different under the context of where this bill was created.
And Allison, I appreciate your comments. Deanna and I have had conversation in this regard. If there was a pilot project to take XYZ zip code and implement curbside recycling and see what kind of return rate we would get, obviously, that's along the lines of what you're looking for. None of those projects were submitted for consideration. And funding the Republic Palmer's request, we are at least creating an end use for that process when the franchise agreements, I hope, include mandatory recycling. So I believe the actions made by the board there does meet your desires. In looking at some of the other applicants, when there's just concerns with regard to sustainability of a few of the other projects. As I said, each of these projects would be great candidates for the normal recycling market development board. But for this specific round of grants, we do have our hands tied a bit with the innovative concept. Would any other board member like to comment further?
As I read the application guidelines, it doesn't translate what Allison is saying at all, I don't think. I mean, I think the discussion that the board has had here today and trying to meet what has been laid out for us, I think that's what we're trying to obtain. My thought when I started reviewing the CIWDPP proposals was that it was going to be about curbside recycling in Indianapolis, and it wasn't even close. So then you had to kind of change your way of thinking and follow these guidelines that were given to us. So I think that's what the board is trying to obtain right now. The greatest, what meets the greater good. I think there was a great disconnect between the legislator, those that were lobbying, and then this board. Where was that discussion if we were to all be on the same page? I don't think that happened. So and hopefully we'll have that discussion regarding House Bill 1512, that we come to a greater agreement about what we're looking for in these projects.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehead. Appreciate your comments. Well, we still have $2 million available to award. What's the pleasure of the board?
Maybe could I ask plastic recycling, I know maybe what's their bottom line? I know they said they yes on 2 million. If there's and I know they said no on 1.1. Is there a middle ground, a halfway point that they'd accept?
Yeah, Craig, it's Brandon. Yeah, it would have to be the 2 million, the promise we go through with it. And the only reason I say that is, we've already invested $20 million over the last 4 years on the west side of Indianapolis with this plant. 2 million of that was for the new lab that's all automotive compounding. So, we're stretched pretty thin, with how much we've invested so far. So you know, I know we go through it with 2 million, anything less than that, like I said, I just can't. It'd be hard to stomach. I wouldn't want to promise something we can't come through with. So
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So, and to go back to one of the questions, if I have 30 seconds, our intention was to focus on Marion County, but this is scalable. There's multiple other landfills that are taking this material in. So, the 220 million pounds that we can take in Marion County, we factor in the 3, 4, 5 other shredders in Indiana, the pounds can really increase. So, our presentation was just what we can pull from Marion County. Just so I'm clear on that. So, this is very scalable. So. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got a note from Neil Peters Michaud of Cascade. He said in looking at their budget, their absolute bottom line number for their project without abandoning it is 730.
So we either fund plastic recycling for $2 million. Or we fund Cascade and then we have money left over.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I would like to make a motion
Please do so.
to fund Cascade Asset Management for the full amount requested of $1,090,000.
A motion by Ms. Uyghur to fund Cascade Asset Management for $1,090,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, was that Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
We have a second by Mr. Noonan. Any additional discussion?
I'll just add that to the point made about what the benefit of these projects is, this would be, I think, yes, it's e-waste, but it's getting at something that is a part of our Marion County, it's different than curbside recycling, but I think that it's assisting in a similar manner more closely than what would be getting diverted with the PRI project.
Thank you, Kelly. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any additional discussion?
I have a question for Cascade. And I think we covered this the other day, but just to be sure, these flat screens will not just be exclusively from Marion County. They'll be coming from their other parts of the state.
Yeah, I mean, many of we can take them from anywhere. We don't have there's no restriction. There's no restriction on the geography.
Any other discussion?
I'll just, one more thing, just to reiterate, one of the things that was mentioned was the metals, the plastics are expected to be going back into the economy and the manufacturing companies that are local, which I appreciate.
All right, with that, we'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Uyghur,
Yes.
Ms. Hackman,
No.
Mr. Guerin,
No.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Ms. Wessler Henry,
No.
Mr. Kratz,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
No.
I vote no.
You missed
And
it,
Sandy.
and I say no.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you,
That's okay.
Sandy. Sandy, your vote was no.
You weren't here last time, you weren't on my list.
It's okay.
With that, the motion does not carry. So we still have $2 million.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Ms. Hackman,
I move that we fund Cascade at $730,000.
we have a motion to fund Cascade Asset Management at $730,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Uyghur. Any discussion?
So I have a question. So what? So we know that plastic recycling cannot take the money, they can't take that. So what would we do with the leftover?
It can stay.
It would just stay.
Or there's other.
Or we could.
Applicants that we
there's other
haven't even
ones that we could
discussed,
discuss.
so
Yeah.
we could give that major to one or more of the other applicants.
You would have 1,270,000 remaining.
You got Cuba, Denny, recycle boards, IMS, still in the, and WM is still in the. and
Right,
what-
right.
So we have a motion on the floor for 790
They can go back.
for Cascade,
7:30.
730, my apologies.
Kelly, did you second it?
I did.
Roll call vote. Miss- I'm sorry.
Before you do the roll call, I'm gonna make a comment for the board to consider. When you're asking, if these companies can take less than the amount, keep in mind during a normal procedure, for a normal grant round, we get, financial information to make sure that the project can be implemented. With this one, we don't do that since we're funding, there's no match. But they still have to present a budget as to how that money is going to be spent. So if they're going to take less, I would encourage the board to find out how that lesser amount is going to be spent. You know what I mean? Is it like a piece of equipment that they can use? That like the 730, that core piece of equipment, is it? How is that budget determined that they can take 730?
Thank you for your guidance, Pat. Representative from Cascade Asset Management. To answer Pat's question and the board. Should you be funded for $730,000? How would that money be spent?
You can all defer to Neil.
I can answer that. Yes. Thank you. It's a great question. The largest line item in our budget that was in the grant submission was for the $40,000 per month full cost expense for the depreciation and the maintenance and operation of the machinery. So that's $960,000 over the 24-month period. We're to scale that back to $25,000 a month. So that $15,000 savings and reduction for that would be funded by the grant would instead be funded by Cascade operating income that we would use for our own funding. So we wouldn't change any of the investment and the activity from this grant. We would still do the education, promotion to get as much equipment from households, still operate the device. We just use an alternative funding source.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we can do a roll call vote. And this is for $730,000 for Cascade Asset Management. Ms. Uyghur,
Yes.
Ms. Hackman,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
No.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Ms. Wessler Henry,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Gratz,
Yes.
Ms. Whitehead,
No.
Mr. Lutz,
No.
I vote no. And motion carries 5 votes to 4. So Cascade Asset Management will be allocated $730,000.
Thank you very much. We're very grateful. We'll make it work.
Thank you. At this point, what's the board's pleasure?
What is the remaining amount, Deanna?
1.27.
1.27, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. Oh.
Can we divide that up among some of the other people who still left?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Guerin.
I would remind the board of the word pilot project or the intent, and none of these other projects met that criteria.
I believe there was another.
Hi,
Yes.
I'm Mo McReynolds. I'm a representative of the city of Indianapolis and Department of Public Works. We certainly are willing to accept that $1.27 million for the pilot project that we have presented. I think one thing that might be a bit of an oversight with the Republic project is that in order to process more polymer, you need to collect more polymer. A project like ours aids the amount of stock you'll be able to process. So I think collecting more either at a curbside or a drop-off location for our project would support yours.
Thank you for those comments. Yes,
Could we have the opportunity to discuss why ours is a pilot project when it was open at the beginning?
Absolutely, please.
That we needed to re-justify. Yeah, what do you want to do?
If the board is willing.
please take the podium.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to join my colleague, Director Mickelson of the Office of Sustainability. We do feel that our project is a pilot project in that we are a nonprofit organization partnering with the public entity. Additionally, our services will be at no additional charge to the public. Our facility currently exists. We're set to have our ribbon cutting soon, so there's no land acquisition or any huge construction or project costs. Additionally, we have a very strategic, coordinated education and outreach program for the public, for both residential as well as commercial customers. We also are identifying more than a half dozen streams, including plastics. And all of those streams will be kept in Indiana in the circular economy. And end users have actually submitted multiple letters of support and partnership and even pledged additional funds. So I know there were some concerns about sustainability, but the folks in the market and who are vendors that we work with really do believe in the city of Indianapolis and Recycle Force's ability to not only bring this pilot project to fruition, but we do foresee increased buy-in and support from folks all over, including some individuals. We've already begun working with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And with that, I will yield to my colleague, Director Mickelson.
Thanks, Krista. That was a great summary. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment on a point you made earlier that there was no proposal taking a zip code within Marion County and saying we want to implement curbside here as a pilot, and then we will in a number of years expand that. That is currently unfeasible for us. We did not see that solution for this timeframe. However, we think this is a great solution to help further curbside and the circular economy with further recycling and the circular economy within Marion County and moving us towards the end direction of curbside recycling. And this is a pilot project truly because it's not being done here. You know, it's not being done in Indianapolis. And so we want to take that and see how we can expand it as a critical component to a truly circular economy.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members?
What's the future for you if Indianapolis gets a curbside program?
I think this type of program will stay. There are residents that will not be served by a curbside program. I think it's also like the idea you see in very advanced states, hard to recycle centers that we see residents continuously dropping off. I used to use one regularly, you know, I'd take a big plastic chair or something there. And so there is a future with this that complements curbside recycling very well.
Do those individuals have an opportunity for subscription service?
The ones that were using the hard to recycle facility? Yeah, I did. When I was using it personally in Colorado, I had curbside recycling, but I also went out of my way to go to this location to recycle things that I knew couldn't go in the
Is there an opportunity for these individuals you're talking about to have subscription service?
Mr. Aaron, the limit of curbside in Indianapolis is more than 4 units, either a single unit or up to 4 units. So multifamily, it either depends on
the landlord as to whether they choose to subscribe for their entire building or not. So a drop-off site is an accurate solution in that scenario.
And in the last meeting 2 weeks ago, we shared that some of the subscription rates have increased by 50% or more. And we're already beginning to see, especially those older individuals on sort of restricted incomes, reaching out to us at Recycle Force for our alternative options, because curbside subscriptions are, just like with all other things, and inflation is impacting those, and it's not feasible for some of our subscribers. And so this is a great alternative option.
So let me, thank you for what you do as a non-profit organization. I appreciate those partners. I kind of look at it today is there's three types of either residential with small business today. You can either choose, right? Choose to have and pay for a collection program, whether it be a recycling dumpster, a container, whatever. You can choose not to and just put it in your normal, or today you can go to a drop center, right? That's kind of my piece of this whole piece, because it's the difference between an unmanned, which is today in market, to a center that has, which I think would improve contamination. However, when we look at it on the greater good of diversion, how.
We already
It's
do
still a
corporate pickup, so we are already.
Right,
doing
that's what I'm saying
massive
is it's.
And we are already in conversation, and that's what, we
That's
have
my
more than
point.
20 letters of, they want to give us their solid waste as well. Those individuals and companies who are paying for that, they see our social mission, and oftentimes we can compete with some of those fees that they're already paying for their recycling. So we're working with corporations all across Marion County to take a look at how they're doing all of their solid waste, all of their recycling, on scales as large as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and even the Indiana Pacers. Yeah, and the third component that you were listing there, the unmanned drop-off sites are just not feasible. They are not good solutions for Marion County.
I don't.
And so we need to move away from them.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that they're in today. And
They are in today, but we do not intend on. I can't speak indefinite, but it would be the goal of at least the Office of Sustainability to move away from unmanned recycling sites, drop-off centers.
I still don't think it's the right grant cycle. I mean, if you come back to the normal process, I think it'd be a different story, but I just don't think under the circumstances that we've been placed, I can't vote.
Right. I'm still having a hard time understanding how you're going from the process that you're describing to full curbside, which is what you said you would like in Indianapolis. How are we gonna get to, how is this gonna create that?
This is an interim solution that will last in its legacy once we move towards that solution. So those things are happening in parallel, sure. But we know that we also need to provide better services to our residents today, tomorrow, before 2025, when our actual opportunity is to implement curbside recycling. Additionally, we know that us rolling out curbside recycling 2026, January 1st, it's not going to just happen overnight. Residents aren't going to know what to do. And so this serves as an educational opportunity as well to begin to get in front of residents in terms of what our recycling options are right now. And it's a complicated message, but.
And do you think when you do get to that point where you're rolling out curbside, that you would just eliminate this service?
No, so. Recycle Force isn't going anywhere. We'll be living in Sherman Park in perpetuity. And so our service
No,
is not.
Yes, or going somewhere. So I want to know if you do curbside,
Mhm.
we're not going to continue to support, or do you expect us to? I don't know.
Right, our curbside program only supports, only serves single family residents. We have residents in multifamily housing and other areas that are not served by curbside recycling, and we want to ensure they have a no additional cost option available to them as well. We've already seen that the unmanned drop-off sites are not sustainable long-term, and so this would be the direction in proving feasibility to help the city move towards.
And then do you see that the city of Indianapolis will take over this expense, or how do you see that it's going to continue to live?
That is a good question that I cannot speak for all the leadership in Marion County because that's really complicated. It certainly would provide justification, right, and helping us move towards a better solution.
And I think it's important to remind the board that this was a law change, a solid waste law change. So similar to Cascade, Recycle Force is an e-waste recycling facility. However, with solid waste law changes, we are able to intake and process out solid waste. So as we already do with some of the cardboard and other pieces. And so we will continue to do that. We will have our hub piece. We have our deployment where we go out into the community, meet the community where they are and collect those items. So that will not change as well. I also alluded to the fact that, moving forward, we have our corporate customers in perpetuity. Our program is sustainable just on our e-waste alone. And for us, getting into the solid waste game is more employment opportunities for those individuals that we serve. And the main focus of our project is to have a cleaner stream. And that begins with educating the public so that we're not getting mixed and contaminated waste into our facilities. So that when we journey up to the journey toward curbside recycling and subscriptions for more individuals, we do know that education and knowledge will need to start at home, cleaning your materials, separating them and getting them to the proper locations. Otherwise, in 2026, we will simply have extra trash bins that are completely contaminated and going to partners all across the city and not getting to the end markets as they should.
When you use the word solid waste, do you mean recyclable waste?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I know there are lots of varying solid
probably
waste,
need-
and I
probably need to explain that.
yeah, so it's in
More
the
specific,
handout from
understand
last
that.
time. We're referring to glass, cardboard, paper, steel, mixed plastics, PET, aluminum cans, and rare earth metals.
So I thought you meant trash.
Yeah.
So when you
I
said
get it.
MSW.
Right. Yeah, no, we're referring to our proposal and those partners, Strategic Materials, Pratt Recycling, OmniSource, the waste reclamation diversion that we'll be partnering with Covanta on. I don't think any other proposal in this room has, materials that are recyclable coming from Covanta to our facility to be recycled. So we are also sort of ticking the box on diversion from, waste incineration. So.
May I make one comment with regard to your statement? You're offering free recycling to individuals in Marion County. And in my experience, for sustainability of the program, each individual needs to know that there's an investment need to be made.
We like to say at no additional cost. You pay for your solid waste.
I feel that recycling is not free.
Absolutely. That's right. Nor is your solid waste pickup.
Correct. And I think it's time where people need to understand that message, that recycling is an investment that we make for our environment. So I would just caution you on how you roll that bit of message out to your clientele.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we have certainly been trying to tighten up that a lot, using the words no additional cost and whatnot, communicating that you actually pay for it through your property taxes, and that hasn't been raised in 30 years. And so we are struggling to pay for our current operations as is. And so we are messaging that point, and we hope to continue to message that point through this program to really set the scene for 2025, 2026.
So I have a question. And this kind of goes to what Pat asked Cascade as well. You had proposed at the last board meeting that you would accept lesser amounts than the original proposal, one of those being the 1 million. And you spoke a little bit about how that would break down, but I think that I'd like you to kind of clarify again, where are those costs going in the budget sheet and the line items if you're accepting the 1 million?
Yep, so if I may, it is in the handout from last time. The two focus areas, the top line item would be for individuals to do the collection and the sorting and the processing of the material. At the $1 million rate, we have 17 new positions that we would be creating. And so the marketing budget would go down to 67,000. So 67,000 of the 1 million would be for education, marketing and outreach. And the remaining balance would support those laborers at a wage of $15 an hour.
How are you going to supplement your education shortfall?
Thank you for that question. We had a recent investment by the Lilly Endowment for $2.5 million for some capital equipment as well as marketing and development build out of our marketing team. Currently, I'm a one-woman shop and the idea is to grow what I do.
So you've got 2.5 million and you're asking us for another 4.
Well, we can't, we have a whole new building, sir. So yes, there are some equipment pieces that we do need to deploy. We have a second floor in our facility as well. So it's quite a massive facility and I would love to invite all of you to come tour at any time. We're doing construction walkthroughs right now, but it's absolutely massive. And there's some beautiful equipment coming through, some of which is provided graciously by this board and some of the marketing development outreach programs that you have. So thank you for that as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So what percentage can you say is gonna be labor costs?
Can you just say, Mike, can you get your calculator? Because I didn't bring it up here. So if you do 1 million minus 67K. And then take that amount, divide it by 1 million, that will give our percentage for labor. And again, we do believe that it's those individuals doing the collecting, doing the sorting, we do sorting at every turn to make sure that our streams are as clean as possible.
For the 1 million minus 67,000 K, 933,000.
So 933 divided by 1 million is 90%.
It's that's labor costs.
So obviously you have an investment in equipment and materials to do these pop-up events. So is that separately funded or do you already have that?
We already have that. We already do that. We have multiple box trucks and things like that. That we do that. We have a Earth Day event coming up at Riverside Park in the community to do that. So we do those every weekend, essentially. We also go to farmers markets. We do drive-through events. We do different iterations in the community. Sometimes we partner with neighborhood groups, which is sort of a curbside hybrid where we'll go into a neighborhood or sanction HOA and do quarterly collections from those households. So we have, depending on what the community wants, we're able to right size and right fit our programming for that. And we even work on Sundays. The JCC just reached out as well and wants to do a Sunday event. So we're doing that as well. So we do operate 67 days a week as needed as the community sees it.
And forgive me if you mentioned this last time, but for the scaled down version of the $1 million in funding, how many events is that over the course of a year or the 2-year cycle?
Yeah, so initially we proposed all 9 townships, 2 touches in all 9 townships in central Indiana. We know we'll at least be able to get 1 touch with the $1 million with the goal of doing more should funding allow or the opportunity allow. What we find is that with these events, there is a return on our investment of going out into the community. And so we can not only sustain the labor costs and the equipment costs, but also incur revenue that we can then use to do more events in the future.
And Recycle Force is not limited to the events. It's limited to all drop-off hours, the same way as it has access right now to electronics.
Thanks, Mom. That's why she's the project manager and I'm just the communications person.
Yeah, I think well, at least in the summary, it was focusing on the mobile drive-through events. So that's why I was asking about that.
We really love our graphic and maybe I'm a little fond of it, but the community convenience center being sort of the hub and then the spokes being those large events, community partnerships, corporate, and then the massive events that we would do with the Pacers.
And as far as this being a pilot project and the ability to expand or replicate, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, we mentioned it and alluded a little bit to it last time about specifically the stream of glass. We think we need the 1 million in funding to subsidize the collection of those solid waste materials. Specifically, glass is the least lucrative. And so we know that the revenues from those other streams will help us collect glass. And we really feel strongly that our pilot will really yield some data and numbers for not only this board, but our legislature to look at and maybe consider implementing some future investments specifically with regard to that specific solid waste stream. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Will you commit at this time to include glass in your recyclables?
It is a full commitment at this time. Yes, sir. We absolutely want to target that and can't wait to open our doors and let folks know that we're happily accepting it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from board members?
Thank you for the
Hearing none,
opportunity.
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Bruce, I do have a few comments in chat that I would like to share briefly.
Please.
Brody Duncan from Denny Excavating said they are willing to accept a lesser amount than requested. Says the request for the purchase of the crusher with the screen plant included was for $535,000 before tax. We would be able to move forward with our project with as little as $250,000. And then I believe that Brandon Shaw from Plastics Recycling had a question for the board that he'd like to present.
Mr. Shaw?
Maybe. He's-
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah, or Fred.
Brandon wanted to ask, when we put together the proposal for this grant, and we read the language that the legislature put together in terms of diverting landfill or diverting waste from Marion County landfill, we thought that our 200 million pounds was a pretty significant amount. And that's why we were excited about that opportunity. And you, as a board, asked if we would accept less. And Brandon, thinking through it, initially said we couldn't go below, much below the 200. So what Brandon was going to ask was if we were awarded less than the 1.3 million, could we go back and make sure that the numbers work so that we can fulfill our obligations? As we talked about before, we have received several grants from the board and we are very, very appreciative of that. But we have done everything we have asked for and feel that this would divert 200 million pounds from the Marion County landfill, which is what we thought the legislature wanted. And so, again, what Brandon was asking is, could we go back if we were awarded the grant, make sure that we can fulfill that obligation, and then kind of tentatively accept that amount if you awarded it to us.
I believe unfortunately, if we make an award to you for 1.27 million and you do go back and call Deanna and say, we can't make it work, then that money's just going to revert to the general fund. Because after the award cycle's over, then it's over.
But I think to your, to follow up on that, I think that there'll be the normal cycle round, and then there is another House Bill 1512 that we talked about earlier that could generate some more, so not like it's over.
All right. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
If I could talk, yeah.
Absolutely, please.
Well, Mr. Brazel comes up. WM is willing to take less, it has no minimum amount because they are moving forward regardless with our upgrades and focus. And regarding the funding, I don't think there's a clear answer about what happens to these funds that are set aside for the pilot project.
Oh, so it's different than our normal grant round.
Yeah, could be.
And
Or they-
Yeah. expand on Fred's request, I mean, we'd love to accept 4 or the 2, but to give you an answer today, I'm going overseas next week to look at more equipment, to figure out if there's cost savings we can do. And if it's a 2-week period of no go, that's probably what we'd ask for. I could give an answer today, but I could probably give an answer in 2 weeks if we were able to accept less. So.
Let me ask a question before we get started. Deanna, is there any way of getting clarification on what happens to the balance if it carries forward into the next $2 million grant round?
Right, so it wouldn't, we know it won't go into the RMDP grant funding, but if it goes into House Bill 1512, which we don't know if it will even pass yet. I don't know if we have an answer that.
Is it gonna look better if we spend it though? I mean, if it's sitting there, we don't spend it, they're gonna be like, well, what did we do?
Why do we lock the money?
Exactly.
And there's people that could
Well,
use it and it's.
money would not be lost. It's
And that's
recycling fund
right.
money.
Yeah,
Not
then
general.
that's the other clarification. It doesn't go back to the general
Correct.
fund. It does stay in our balance of the
We go back
recycling.
into,
We would try.
It's not general appropriation.
Right, if we were still told to appropriate this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we're not doing our job if we don't.
Exactly.
To our best. To our best ability.
And it does say in the statute up to 4 million. It didn't say the board had to award 4 million.
but to clarify, it will not revert to the general fund, as I stated earlier. It will revert to the recycling.
Promotion
fund,
and assistance.
Promotion and assistance fund. Thank you,
Another
Deanna.
option is that 1512 is still language is still being developed.
Right.
Part of that could be any remaining, language could be added that said any remaining funds from round 1 can be added to the 2 million that they're proposing for round 2. So that would even help cover, I would make sure that the remaining balances, if not awarded under round 1, is still awarded.
Thank you, Pat.
Either way, round 1 does not say that there's only one round and that's it.
All right. Sorry.
No, no problem.
QB.
Clear as mud.
So QB Recycling.
Yes, my name is Lester Brazel. I'm the founder of QB Recycling. And there's a talk about pilot programs. We are truly a pilot program. We are bringing a traditional MRF version and bringing it to the community. We created a recycling grid, which allows about a 2.5 mile radius. We'll put our facilities in that radius, and that facility only covers that 2.5 mile radius. I asked for the small version, which is our pods and our micro recovery centers. They can process right on site, except for the pod. The pod is more of a spoken wheel. It takes that material, traditionally household materials, including businesses. A lot of the focus has not been on businesses. I've been working with small businesses for the last 2.5 years, and this is how I started this business, because they asked me, can I help them with their product, their problems, which was a lot of cardboard waste. A lot of cardboard waste is probably way more than you'll probably see in your homeowners, because they do it all the time. With the e-commerce, there's a large increasing amount of cardboards coming to people's homes. And we all know that the drop-off centers are not really good. Our units are manned. Pretty much 7 days a week or 6 days a week. They're operational 24 hours a day. We don't require pop-ups because we're there in that community 24/7, 365 days a year. So we don't have to have a pop-up. The 2 prototypes that we have are going to go in areas that are more like high demand and see if it works. And then we can expand to the whole citywide. And typically the funding for that whole amount is under $3 million. I've been in Indianapolis for 17 years. The rate of recycling has not gone up. You can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. We have a different result. We have a different way to recycle. We're bringing it to the communities and bringing it to local. So you don't have to require pop-ups. You don't have to require different things. that a lot of people are talking about today. Our centers are drive-throughs. You can bring your recyclables all the time. So.
I truly appreciate your passion and your vision. Just creating out the city. It took a lot of thought, and I commend you for that. My question is, the problem I have with it, I'm being in the recycling business. Your storage space for your commodity and one baler per location. You have to complete a bale before you can start another commodity. So you're going to have a half a bale of plastic, and then you're gonna need to get cardboard out of the way. How are you going to convert from plastic to cardboard? And then where are you gonna store your cardboard until you have enough for shipment?
Sure.
Those are my concerns.
Okay, those are micro centers. Those can be expanded. Remember, we talked about modular type of shipping containers. That model has a little over 1,300 square feet. Okay, that can process, it has storage on the second level as well. You understand? These are high cube shipping containers, and they can store quite a bit of items. There's a process that you may not know as well. There's smaller compactors that will press the cardboard down and our baskets, more or less. Those items will go up to the second level until they're ready to be recycled with a full bale. We also have a spoken wheel, our larger facility, which is a micro. It's about 14,000 square feet. Right now we have close to 30,000 square foot space for our first micro center. Okay, they can store quite a bit of product. It's not an issue with storage because we have the different varying ways to spoken wheel, move it around more or less. The larger ones, there are only 4 in the city, as you've seen with the graph. The micro units are 8 when it's full scale. So the spoken wheel will move things around, and there's constantly trucks going from one location to another location because we're community focused. We're utilizing pickup trucks, which I do currently right now, box trucks, and they move things around accordingly. So it's not a process, it's not an issue of capacity at that one location because there's multiple locations, mind you. The cardboard that's coming from small business is a lot. I did a prototype for about 6 months. You can make a bale in just a small area in 1 day.
I guess maybe this will answer my question. Where do you plan on marketing your product that you generate?
The end users are your paper mills, and then of course your manufacturers that need that high quality because we have multi-sort. We don't have a single stream. This is a multi-stream, so it's high quality. Not they don't because it's already sorted on site.
Right. What is the requirement for a mill spec bale?
60 by 70, 73, 74.
6 wire tie.
Yeah. 6 wire tie. And then you need 20 tons. For a shipment. 153 foot trailer load. So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. But you gotta remember, we talked about the whole entire city. There's a lot more businesses that produce cardboard. If you look at that cardboard alone. There's a ton of, I have currently.
I agree with you 100%.
Right.
You don't have
just
to
look
tell
at
me on the volume of cardboard.
this cardboard alone will fill up a baler. I'm dealing with multi small business at this time right now.
I think kind of to Mr. Burrow's point. To make a mill ready bale, you need a standard style downstroke baler.
Yep.
The bales, the type of machine that you propose, which is it's called a sandwich bale, which are smaller. A lot of those, it doesn't hit the criteria, in my experience, when you go to a cardboard mill, and they'll reject those.
Okay.
That's the challenge of this whole, I love the concept. I think as all of them that came up, the definition of pilot, you hit the nail on the head. I'll go back to my previous statement of you know, it's, again, it's the whole goal is diversion and improving the race. And if you're going after, whether it's going, you say, you go back to kind of the three type of things. There are people that believe in recycling and put their money where their mouth is and know the value of it. There's ones that, hey, I believe in recycling, but I'm gonna find the cheapest way and I'm gonna take it to a facility, or there's others that just don't. Right? You'll never get the ones that don't. The ones that believe in it, that will have the curbside recycling. So I think we fall back into that same group of if it's a community manned or a site to take it. I mean, it's just like kind of the banking industry. It's like, you know, why are there now kiosks? Why is there ATMs? And I think there's gonna, I don't see the end of increasing the diversion when you're going after the same material that's going today. Right, wrong, hey, I agree with the contamination of it, and if people are there that can say no and go away and touch, I agree with that it's going to improve the contamination and the quality without a doubt. But when you look at it on a waste diversion in the whole space, and you're dealing with in that programs are still there, right, wrong, or indifferent, good, bad, and in the future if they're shifting, but today it's here.
Okay, I'll answer that question. Because our big focus is small business. This is what I do every day right now.
Yeah. Those small businesses can go.
Small business do not have a recycling program for the most part. You can drive down most.
So a small business can't go to the unmanned drop centers?
They don't do that. They won't do that. Typically, they won't do that. Ours is manned as well.
Yeah.
We actually bring the cardboard from the businesses already. We also recycle pallets as well.
No, I know you do.
So the two, they kind of help each other. Because if you're a small business, you have nothing to do with the pallet too. It normally ends up in your trash bin, your bin, which creates a lot of other problems. Now we take care of both of those when a small business point. We take care of both of those from in-house because we come to your location. They don't have to go to a dumpster or to a drop-off because we take care of that for them. So it's service-based. And because of the drop-off centers are open, they allow any consumers to drop off items as well. So
yeah,
it covers both areas.
I have a question.
Sure.
So obviously you have a lot of experience with the cardboard and the pallets. For the other materials that you intend on collecting, do you have relationships in place for companies that those products are going to go to?
Well, I spoke to, last year I did a lot of communicating with downstream people. And I do have some information regarding that it can start the programs right away as soon as I can do it. I have to have the material to forward it to the manufacturers and some of the processors.
And just to help me clarify what I believe I understand, because I think when I first reviewed your application, I understood it as being this standalone site, in an outlot or what have you, in a strip center. But you separately have this 30,000 square foot facility where you can, all of those materials from the small site will be transported. They don't have to be a full semi-load.
Right, they don't have to be full. They can be.
They're not going directly to the end user from there. You're taking them to your facility.
Right there, like I said, it's spoken wheel. Some of them can go to the mini ones, which are the larger facilities, and some of them go to the micro ones. Because these are ones full scale, they're about 2.5 miles away from each other.
So if you were to get funding from this grant for this, that would be for one of the micro centers?
That's for one of the micro and one pod.
Okay,
Just
and then
a test.
And then as those prove themselves, then you would expand and have this larger grid that you shared as part of your long-term plan.
Yes, if there's funding for the mini, which is about $350,000, we would like to do that too. But it's a process. Each one of them have a purpose. There's 4 micros or minis, excuse me, that in north, south, east, and west, and anything that the minis micros can't handle can funnel to the larger facilities, which also have more available, have more space, and they have more storage space as well. Currently, we're actually in the Minhofer and Washington Square Mall area. That's where the larger one facility is at right now.
And as you ramp up, obviously there could be an issue with, it may take a very long time for you to get enough volume of specific material type to warrant getting it to that end purchaser.
Right.
Are there any concerns with that? I mean, I don't have a sense of the different material streams and how long it could take to build up enough of a volume, but have you had those kind of conversations with the end recipients in terms of it, maybe you only have enough to ship to them once every 6 months?
No, it's not gonna be that way because I'm dealing with some very large retailers. We call them dark stores as well. And they produce, right now, I think they're doing about 5 pickles a week and cardboard. Just 5, and that they have multiple locations. Just that one location can make those a lot of, it can.
And the cardboard, I understand, you've got that part down, it's the other materials.
Oh, the other materials like the metal, yes, most small businesses are not dealing with a lot of metal unless they're doing something like that. That will come from the homeowners. We have something in place as well, because it's community-based. We're trying to educate a small community instead of a large community. Every pod or every mini and every micro has an area that they're gonna educate. So is conducive, and most of the people who are employed will be from those communities as well. So it will be a lot easier to communicate to those residents, including multi-unit complexes, which really don't have anything. And we can provide that service as well, because each location has like a truck. At least the micros and minis have a truck, box trucks, and pickup trucks with trailers. So we could provide a service to any area, smaller, larger, even industrial.
Thank you.
So in the past, the board's experienced some problems with applicants and citing land or locations. And I know you have, so is this one gonna be at that Hoffer location that you're currently doing the pallet recycling, or is this proposed project gonna be somewhere else?
It'll be somewhere else more of a high concentration, where we will see the need of, well, the pod can be placed almost anywhere.
But you don't have a location.
Don't have a location for those items right now.
And then, item did compliance checks, on your facility to site visit at the Mount Hoffer, but I know, and you mentioned this at the last board meeting, something about still waiting on permit from the city of Indianapolis.
Yeah, the building was actually too high initially, but we have a process in place now. We're gonna, the zoning board is gonna support it.
Then I would recommend that, on your application specifically, let's nail down those answers. And I would recommend that you come back to us at the Recycling Market Development Board, grant, application time period. What's the other board members' thoughts on that recommendation?
What numbers?
There's too many.
What numbers are you talking about?
Well, we need zoning approval.
Oh,
You need all of these things that we're
That's-
talking about.
that I can,
And it's very difficult for us to say we're going to award you money when there's so many open issues.
that's not an open issue. That's actually a settled issue. I can show you that right now.
But the site locations as well would be helpful.
Well, they're all considered, there will be in a zone of commercial C4. So it's not gonna be an issue there because there's not a building height difference like it was here because there's a residential across the street of Minhofer. So it's kind of like a gray area. The buildings could be 65 feet on the sides in the front, but only 18 feet in the back.
So are you in conversations with locations?
I have one permanent, I'm in a lease right now. The larger facility, I'm in lease space right now.
For the micro and the.
Micros, I'm looking at locations and there would typically be in a strip mall, like a Class C strip mall.
Yeah, I think that's part of the discussion. I mean, to be honest, I find this to be a really compelling project, and I truly do believe that it is a pilot project, which also makes it a little bit more challenging because you have to do a lot more legwork to get a lot of these answers and things lined up. I mean, I I really like the project. I feel like it is one of the riskier projects for us because there are still a lot of things that are unknown and
What-
those things could cause delays or, you know, could cause other issues, which is actually a question I have for Deanna is if, for example, we were to award funding and they did encounter issues with getting site locations confirmed or other, you know, I don't know, equipment lead times or things like that, what happens in terms of the process?
Great question. Yeah, according to statute, it does say, let me see if I can pull it. Project duration will not exceed 2 years. So,
Location is not an issue. I've actually been in contact with a couple of mall owners. So that's not an issue. The location's not an issue.
How much is the lease on something like that?
It varies for every person.
About.
Like, right now I have a 3-year lease.
I-
Where the location on it right now, I have a 3-year lease.
Okay.
So it could vary
And how
you
much
know,
you paying for that lease?
about $1,300.
A month?
I negotiate a really good rate.
Yeah, I think having that information specifically nailed down, the outlot that this is going to be located at, what that lease amount is, it helps us to understand the financial stability and sustainability of this project.
And that's another part, since we're doing something totally different than what most recyclers do, we do with pallets. Pallets is a high commodity right now, high value commodity. And that's what most recyclers are not doing. We do both, and that's how we're able to communicate with small businesses primarily. We also get homeowners that buy from the, you know, your Home Depot, your home improvement store that pick up pallets full of landscaping materials in the summertime. And we've gotten a lot of calls to pick up pallets from those locations. So we are totally innovative in that way, putting a couple of two together, and we can serve a larger customer base versus a smaller customer base. We serve not only homeowners, small units, small businesses, and we can also go in industrial. Right now, we're not able to go there because that's not our market primarily, but we can actually put our locations on site. And that's the big difference, because we are a modular units and we can build on site on someone else's property if they allow us to do that, if it's industrial. As far as the other things, that's not, real estate is not an issue. Finding a spot is not an issue because there's a lot of class 3 malls out there that really want business. So it's not an issue.
so I also want to remind the board that Cuvia did apply for the last recycling market development grant round and didn't have funding in place yet.
Didn't have funding in place.
So they were the ones that had to withdraw. They didn't have funding.
Funding just couldn't come through fast enough.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, may we speak on behalf of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Yes.
Thank you. Everyone, great to see you all again. My name is Logan Waddle. I'm the Sustainability Program Leader for Penske Entertainment, joined by Pat Garlock, Senior Director of Facilities at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Appreciate the opportunity to discuss our project. We do believe that this is a true pilot project, as sustainability in motorsports is virtually non-existent, especially in North America. One year ago, a sustainability department at Penske Entertainment did not exist. And 1 year ago, we did not have the initiatives in place that we do today, including but not limited to the 100% renewable fuel that we've developed with our partner Shell that we will be fueling our Indy cars with this season, as well as Wiley tire technology, which is a sustainable natural rubber that is grown here domestically in the southwestern United States that will be used for our tire production. Additionally, those tires are transported to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway via an electric hauler and charged on site at IMS with an electric charger for commercial vehicles that was installed all within the last year. Initiatives that we're very proud of. On top of this, we are really looking forward to becoming a zero waste facility by 2030. And of course, the infrastructure for recycling is a key part of that, as well as the education for fans that will be a first of its kind in motorsports in North America, as well as sports in Indianapolis in general. So very excited for the opportunity to be recycling throughout our entire facility, not only to influence fans and the local community and the public on recycling, but as well as the sports venues and municipalities locally that need help as well. We all know the challenges of recycling in our state and in our country. So that being said, I wanted to open up the floor for any questions additionally regarding our project. We are really looking forward to the opportunity to being able to recycle throughout our entire facility, and we consider our zero waste initiative a key project of sustainability at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
I first of all would like to commend you for starting this project and maybe passing it along throughout the country to the other motorsports locations. Because anytime we can say recycling in Indianapolis in the same sentence, it's wonderful. Doesn't happen very often. And I do think, looking at the number of people you're going to touch as far as education is concerned, I think you're going to do a great job, because there's a lot of individuals that are going to see this and understand that this is important to Indianapolis and to Indiana. I think that this does qualify as a pilot project, but I think that your funding chances would be better under maybe community.
They'd have to apply as a non.
They couldn't do that, that's right, okay. So,
I appreciate it, Debbie, and I do think that we have, as to your point, a tremendous opportunity to showcase Indianapolis. If you pick up a Sports Business Journal within the last year, any of them that have been published, I don't think there's a single one that doesn't mention Climate Pledge Arena or the WM Phoenix Open, and the work they're doing in the sustainability realm in the sports space. And if anyone who watched the Phoenix Open last weekend, also would have seen the highlighted initiatives that we're doing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, not limited to, but including the first ever organizational certification from Council for Responsible Sports. So we just announced that last week. The IMS is the first organization to ever complete that. We are at the silver level, and as we look to increase to the gold and evergreen level, waste diversion is a key piece of that we can't achieve that level without really reducing our footprint of waste.
okay, and this is something you hope will Gainbridge and Lucas Oil will use this as an example to expand their programs.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, IMS is hosting an individual from a local sports entity I shouldn't disclose who, as part of our sponsorship of the Indiana Sustainability and Resilience Conference that's coming up this week at IUPUI's campus, to help guide them and influence them on those initiatives as well.
Okay, and we've asked a lot of other organizations, how much less could you take than your initial request?
We could take any amount that you would give us and implement it. Our core business is not waste diversion. So we can scale back any amount of funding that you give us. We can scale the project back, and our focus will really be, with any funding we do receive, will be on the inside of the gates first and foremost, as that is the highest trafficked areas, and our golf courses used about 8 months out of the year. So we have constant traffic there that does not currently have access to recycling. The outside lots and camping areas would be our next focus, as obviously people who are living on our property for a couple of days generate a significant amount of waste, but they are used less than the areas inside the gates that we would be able to have an impact.
So you're depending on this funding to implement your entire project?
Correct. Yeah. So without this funding, we will not likely move forward with additional recycling this year. We will have the same footprint that we've had in the past, and we would have to apply again in the future. We try to make some strides each year to get a little bit better in the recycling space with our sustainability funding and all of the research that is going on. We of course always want to be improving, but this funding would really allow us to make a jump that is noticeable, that everyone would see when they're out at the track this summer.
So if we give you, let's just say for, throwing darts at the wall, we give you 600,000 instead of the 1.2 million, you're still gonna be able to do it and sustain the whole program, or it'll be scaled in half?
It would be scaled in half. Of course, there's potential if we saw the funding and presented it to our board, Roger Penske and Jonathan Gibson, who are still very involved in this and all of our spending, that they would match based on what we've achieved. We haven't had that conversation on what they're willing to spend on it so far this year. So it would be scaled back initially, but of course, we would propose the full project still moving forward as everyone, I think, in here can understand that being a 1,000-acre facility, that's also the oldest, most historic racetrack in the world, being able to recycle across the board would be a massive statement that we could definitely market and would be huge for our communication team.
But without this funding, you still would have a zero waste target, right?
We will still have a zero waste target without the funding, correct?
So let's do a role reversal. You're sitting here. How do you think this proposal sits with you're sitting on the board?
I would have to abstain because I'm a big race fan, so I would have to sit out. I think that this is to the board, if I were sitting on it, I would think of it as a major opportunity and may not have the diversion quantity that's other projects do in the room and on the phone, but it does have, I think, of all the projects, I think it has the biggest potential to influence public.
Thank you.
I commend you for what you're trying to do. But I think it's this zero waste target and what you are normally doing anyway is as much in your best interest as it would be ours to fund it. Am I making sense? I mean, you already are touting what you've been able to do in implementing recycling programs. So this benefits Penske, does it not?
It does.
You're able to go out and so without this money, you still are going to continue to work towards zero waste.
Work toward it is, I think, the key of your sentence there. Without funding, and who knows if we'll get there. Goals are goals for a reason that you don't always meet them in any business.
Yeah, I had mentioned last time, I didn't think it was a pilot project. I think, again, this is the wrong funding side. I mean, even on some of these others we've been talking about, I'm really hung up on the fact that our hands are tied. And we'd like to do more, but I can in good conscience pursue some of these because of the restrictions. I mean, I hate it, but that's the way it is. And I agree that this young man's project is truly a pilot project. There's just some unknowns that need to be, addressed. So I can't in good conscience vote for it, even though I'm very supportive of what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
And I'll just share my 2 cents on this. Again, to me, it's a good project. I don't see it as a pilot project. I see it as good business practice. When you talk about marketing and PR, there's a whole lot of value there, and you should just steal some from their budgets to help fund this. And it is harder to quantify those values, but the values are there. As I mentioned last time, I kind of, when I first looked at this proposal, got excited because I thought I was going to read something about a very innovative marketing and, educational campaign, because you do have a unique audience. And I think that's what is unique about this project, is the potential to reach some people that maybe otherwise wouldn't be reached through some of our other residential recycling programs. But at the end of the day, when I look at this, it's just more commingled recycling containers and compacting. And so I don't view this as a pilot project. It's a great project, and I hope that you're able to move forward with it, but I think there's more needed for me to be able to view this as a pilot project.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a correction, that 30,000 square footage lot, was incorrect. It was the location I'm looking at. The current one we have is 78,000 square feet. And we have a lot of room to expand as well.
Thank you, Mr. Brazel. I have a question for, and please calm down and stay seated. It's basically a yes or no, and we may get into further discussion. What troubles me about workforce DVA recycle force is the amount of labor expense versus the amount of educational expense. And I feel that you're labor heavy and educational light. Would you comment on that?
Yes, sir. We do believe that collection is key. And that's where we know we need bodies to do some of the collecting and hauling and processing of this material. I do recognize that there's, 1.27 left on the table. Recycle Force in the city of Indianapolis would be open to that amount, a little over $1 million, and the additional funds that are over the $1 million, we would like to have the board consider us rolling that into marketing as well. We do feel specifically with some of our streams, namely glass and cardboard, that we do need the minimum of at least 15 to 17 staff to maintain and run this specific 2-year pilot, sir.
Thank you.
I want to, can you also then just address how you got to that number for your education dollars? I know it was a question that you did respond to in the request for additional information, but we did not receive any exact quotes. I know that you used a kind of a formula. I just want some clarification on that.
We actually utilized the weight and the amount of commodities that we would collect and determine the amount of labor we would need, and therefore the labor
education.
I understand,
Okay.
but for we took that, what we would need to get, forgive me, Deanna, offhand, to get the diversion of just shy of 5,000 tons. We knew we would need that amount of staff at the $1 million rate, and then we just simply subtracted, and the remainder would all go to education and outreach. And so my point stands that at a minimum to satisfy this board's request for a minimum of weight, we think that's very conservative, that's very low. But we do recognize that we need folks to execute the program, and that's what the bulk of our funding request was for. And then the marketing piece, we know is critical to get collection and to deploy those individuals into those spaces to collect and process the weight at our Sherman Park home.
The marketing and education number was also gut checked with similar marketing campaigns that the city has run in the past.
That's what. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? Where do we go from here? We have 1.27 back remaining available to award today. Under the guidelines we've been given under the statute.
If I can speak from my perspective, again, all wonderful projects with the restrictions that we have and the intention of this funding. And then a few projects where either, I think they aren't really meeting the need of pilot, or maybe aren't fully fleshed out and need some more development to be ready to be represented. I personally only have one that I would consider at this point, which is the workforce DVA recycle force. I'm not sure about dollar amount, but I still think there are some questions. But I think that being a pilot, there are going to be questions, and it is potentially a little bit riskier than some of our typical grant funds, just because there are some unknowns, but I would consider supporting one with that.
Let me ask you, would you rather support that or increase the amount for some of the recipients that have been awarded already?
That's a good question.
Well, we tried once to get more money to Cascade in that way. So,
We've
So
awarded
we
2
had-
million
We had
to,
a motion for more to Cascade. Jump there, I think.
so we did have that motion, Devin.
That was 1 point, it was 1.0.
Okay.
We talk a lot about education and. You know, it's people on the board of this, I can't believe I'm saying this because it's completely opposite of where I felt at the beginning, but I think. As far as hitting people and making recycling known, I think in that response people, it's got to. Because if that expand, I mean, even so, it's the largest venue for the largest sporting event in the world, and then, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then if that would expand to the swirl and expand to Cambridge, and then it just started to expand out, I think the education piece of that, it might not be the volume, but the education piece of it, I think is huge.
Debbie, I think you're, to your point, but it's your comment, it's an expansion. The project is, I mean, they currently have recycling going on and it's expanding the footprint to a greater part of their areas. And I think to the definition and backing into of the 1226 that we are in today, that's what makes this tough. Now, future, if things come in, absolutely, it gives us a little bit more freedom within the framework.
But they're expanding onto another portion of the speedway. That's not been hit, and most other speedways don't hit it. They just talked about hitting a campground event.
Then I'll go back into
You're-
the tough of an unmanned to a manned.
I mean, you're expanding on Republics, trying to get the colored number 5s. You're just expanding on recycling the number 5s, correct? I mean, it is an expansion, but you're hitting something that no one else has hit. And if you can teach those people at the campground to recycle properly, which I'm hoping you're gonna do a lot of education. So these don't turn into a trash bin, because normally they do. But you're hitting those people, and like Debbie, you hit upon the education aspect. If we can educate people at this speedway and teach them to recycle and recycle right, they're gonna take it home. I mean, that's part of I consider this a pilot, because you're trying to hit people in a different way that they've never been hit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, that's just what I look at. I like their proposal because it is different. And it can get the message out about recycling to a ton of people. And if you can educate them to do it properly, that's the big key here. So it doesn't turn into another tragedy.
Well, that's where I feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity because I would, as I mentioned last time, I would have loved to have seen a robust proposal talking about unique ways that they're going to do that education. And like I mentioned, gamification, there's a great opportunity to make it fun and engaging and exciting, but if you're just gonna do signage and some bins, I mean, are you really getting that much out of it in terms of education? Yes, you will capture more. We also get a lot of commingled stuff.
Mr. Guerin,
Well, if we look at that one, then we should go back and look at Denny's application, because they're adding another site. It was not just to be a pilot project, but they're adding another site. So I think we're opening some Pandora's box here by expanding beyond what definitely is defined as a pilot project. I agree, these are all good. I'd like to see a lot of these funded.
point taken. Yes, Carl.
I just thought I'd read the purpose as stated in 1226. Purpose of the pilot project is to determine the most practical and effective means of addressing domestic supply chain disruptions that result in scarcity of raw materials necessary for manufacturing and other industries in Indiana, increased prices of those raw materials and manufacturing delays, employment fluctuations and stagnant growth. B, preventing the unnecessary disposal of potentially valuable recyclable materials in landfills and waste incinerators. And C, stimulating economic development, including the creation of employment opportunities throughout Indiana And market development through reuse recyclable materials by diverting materials from waste streams throughout the pilot project area for commercial reuse. And to determining feasibility of expansion of the waste diversion program throughout Indiana by analyzing data provided by project participants to the department to measure the success of the pilot project in diverting waste from landfills and incinerators and providing valuable raw materials for manufacturing and other Indiana industries. And 3, determining potential for future market development.
Thank you. Considering those criteria, any comments or motions or questions by board members? We do have a fiduciary responsibility to utilize this money that is available in the best interest of the state and the goal intended.
If you just listen to what if you listen really closely to what he just read off. A lot of these, the word pilot is just. I don't see the word pilot being described in the whole thing you read. I mean, it's here, it up front, and then you give all the different things that it's tied to. I hear the word expansion. I hear the word, diverting it properly. I still struggle with the pilot word. Especially if you just read that out loud and you had that chance to really listen to it. And then you hear the word expansion. Harry brought up the word expansion. I'm struggling with it, and
That's why we're going to have the discussion with regard to 1512.
Because I'm over here looking at some of the people, I mean, I can't vote on 3 to 4 of these, and the 3 or 4 I can't vote on, I support 100% because I understand it's gonna make a huge difference because of the background I bring. But I can't.
Yeah, I can't vote on one. Bruce can't vote on 2 or 3.
I have 3 that I am recused from.
Unfortunate.
I have comments on all 3, but can't discuss.
When you talk about expansion, we can expand. We can expand from this city, this county to the entire state. Every one of our items can expand to big communities and small communities that don't have any kind of MRF close by. Because we are micro or mini MRF. We just don't store it. We do it a different way. We do multi-sort versus single sort, which is cleaner.
And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Bezel. On your initial request and your initial tonnage diversion numbers, you are 4 times the average processing cost of a normal recycling facility. It's just something that I think you should investigate a bit further and look a little deeper as to the sustainability moving forward.
Well, a lot of those numbers weren't, I didn't include certain things. I included main things that will be a consumer. If I just add in pallets, the number goes sky high because pallets are typically 35 pounds on up. And what we do with that, we divert it from the landfill and those are turned into mulch or some other type of item such as pellets for eating. So everything that we do from currently is diverted in some other type of use, including pallets, which most people are not even thinking about.
And I commend you for all the efforts that you put forth. It's just, I struggle with your application's ability to fit in the guidelines that we've been given here.
I have a question for IMS and Recycle Force. Speaking of like being a model in that pilot, I know that IMS said that they're a model that could be replicated at Cambridge and other facilities, Lucas Oil. Recycle Force in their application is partnering, right, with Cambridge already.
This is correct.
So Have you guys talked to each other?
Us and IMS?
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we're working together to have an e-waste event, here in the late summer, as well. So we definitely are interested in
that
exploring
model-
partnerships, but we do have a letter from Pacer Sports and Entertainment that we're already actively examining what they're doing, but we don't necessarily have the funds to support some of the diversion and recycling program that they have, with labor.
Furthermore, we're all serving on the sustainability committees for the large sporting events, Olympic national trials, All-Star Game, so we're in constant collaboration.
I will note too, Deanna, that while Recycle Force doesn't have necessarily the athletes that IMS does, we actually do partner with Hoosiers for Good, which is Indiana University athletes, and they promote the program and the work that Recycle Force does. So we do have maybe a more rookie caliber of athlete, but we do really get into, we love our sports marketing folks, and we really get into partnership with them as well, elevating the work that they do.
Any other questions? I think from my experience, one of the key components to any successful recycling program, whether it's city, state, county, you name it, is the education and commitment given to rolling out the program within the boundaries. Again, my problem is the labor versus the education component. And I would hope to hear something from you that says we can double the education dollars and cut back on labor. Because you're gonna get a message more clearly to your customers. And it is important to have manned facilities. It's extremely important.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
the city I mentioned before that it's a really complicated message, right? We're going to be talking about in a couple of years, the new residential curbside recycling. It depends on who your hauler is, it's what you can actually put in the bin. We're going to have these new staff drop-off centers, et cetera. So I didn't mention it earlier because we're actually pursuing it through another grant resource, but we have applied for an EPA education outreach and recycling grant. And one of the solutions there is to actually utilize an app that would directly message what you can recycle to the resident and take your zip code into account. And you would be able to like basically look up what you're trying to recycle and understand your options. It also includes talk strap, just back to that circular economy idea of like, we need to have more than just one option for our residents. And we have to figure out how to message that because it's not just clearly recycled plastics, right? We know it's much more complicated than that. And so this app will be really unique in that it actually helps us implement curbside recycling overnight. But again, that's dependent upon another grant that we're seeking, but it would really support this project. And we see it as they complement each other really well.
And should the funding be awarded today, we would immediately stand up a Circle City Recycles website, social media channels, and begin the outreach online. So that will really reduce the cost of hard copy printing, direct mailers, paid airtime and radio time to really meet folks where they are with their phones that are already in their hands and pockets.
thank you.
I have another question for workforce. So you had mentioned that if your original application was for 4 million, and then you came back and said, here were alternate plans if you were to get 2 million or 1 million. Today, you said that if you were to get the 1.27 that is currently remaining, that you would use that additional $270,000 for marketing and education.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have, I don't remember when you originally submitted with the 4 million.
It was 400,000, so we've always targeted a roughly 10% marketing and education budget as part of the project.
Okay, so you already have the ability to pull from that plan to.
Oh, yeah. And it actually is more expensive than 400K. So we have lots of other sources that we're seeking out, and a lot of the letters, if you had a chance to review, our partner letters. Folks like Novelis are interested in coming alongside and, you know, helping support messaging for aluminum cans and so on and so forth. So we're really excited about the opportunity to grow the pot. We know some of the language in the pilot is to expand investment from those outside entities that are private and for-profit. And we think that we're a great conduit with the city of Indianapolis being a nonprofit to be sort of the champions to lead that forward.
I will say you had a number of letters of support, which was, I think, speaks to the level of confidence that a lot of other players have in you guys.
Any board member care to make a motion?
I'm going to attempt to make a motion.
I have a question. Last one. We're talking about education, absent of that. We do have one already. Which is right here. This is for our pallet side of the business, which is easy to update for the total recycling. We do have one that's on the Apple Store and, what's the other one? The other one. But we do have an app present right here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brazel. Kelly, would you continue?
Yes, so I would like to make a motion to award workforce 1.27 with the understanding that additional 270,000 would go towards marketing and education.
So we have a motion to fund Workforce Incorporated DBA Workforce 1.27 million with the understanding that
270,000.
270,000 be utilized towards education.
I guess that's plus the 67,000 that you already have allocated to that.
Like 360 some thousand or $300 and some thousand.
Yeah, you do the math.
I'm sorry.
230,000. 337. Get this motion correct. For 1.27, how much was originally allocated towards education?
67.
67. And we're adding how much?
270,000.
So 337,000 will be dedicated towards education, correct?
Yes.
So we have a motion on the table to award Workforce Incorporated DBA Recycle Force 1.27 million with $330,000, $337,000 allocated towards education. Does that
Yes.
comprise your motion?
Thank you. That's correct.
We have a second. Second by Ms. Wessler Henry. Any additional discussion needed? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Wigger,
Yes.
Ms. Hackman, Mr. Guerin,
No,
Mr. Noonan,
I have to excuse myself.
Ms. Wessler Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Kratz,
No.
Mr. Lutz,
No.
Ms. Whitehead.
No.
And I vote no. Motion does not carry. By 6 to 7 to 2. Do I hear any other motions for awarding 1.27 million? Or portion thereof?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Hackman,
I move to award $270,000 to Indiana Motor Speedway.
$270,000 to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's a motion on the table to award $270,000 to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Kratz. Any additional discussion necessary?
How much do we have left?
1.27.
1.27. So we'll go into a roll call vote. Ms. Weider,
No.
Ms. Hackman,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
No.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Ms. Wessler Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Kratz,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Ms. Whitehead.
No.
My vote is no. The motion does carry 5-4. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is awarded $270,000. Now we have a balance of $1 million available. If anyone cares to make a motion to award or amend any of the previous grants. How much from board members?
I just wanted to make it that we're gonna have to work with IMS to figure out how they're gonna spend that. You guys didn't talk about that, so we will need to know that. I don't think we don't care about that, but we'll leave that to you. To the experts.
Thank you. Any additional motions or considerations by board members? I do believe that every grant had merit, and some applied more towards our normal recycling market development board grants. And hopefully with some wording changes in House Bill 1512, our hands will not be so tied with regard to pilot projects and innovation. Hearing no other comments, concerns, we can move beyond the award session and go to the next order of business.
Have a break. Sure.
Mr. Guerin?
Break, please.
Oh, it is almost 12 o'clock, so you, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene approximately 12 minutes to 12.
Yes. Appreciate
There was a message already. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that they
Exactly.
I'm gonna
Kelly had to leave, she has another meeting,
Okay.
so we'll have to get cliff notes to Kelly. Next order of business is discussion of House Bill 1512. House Bill, Deanna, do you want to give?
Yeah,
an
so I
overview?
could start the conversation. I have been in communications with our legislative liaison, who's been in communications with the bill author. So hot off the presses last night, I provided you guys with the proposed amendment, third amendment already. So they are working and listening to feedback. So. The board, I think what the conversation is if the board still, as mentioned in the last meeting, wants to provide. Any kind of written statement to the legislatures. They are meeting on this bill, as far as I know, it was scheduled for 2 o'clock today. For the Environmental Affairs Committee. So there'll be other, once if it goes through them, then it goes to a full House vote where there's an opportunity for amendments. And then if it goes through the House to the Senate, then there's, it goes through that whole process again. And there'll be obviously other opportunities for amendments at that time too. So what we see now may not be even what, the final thing will be. Some things to know is they changed timeline to 2024 to give the board a little bit more time to see how this first round is moving through. They did add research and development projects and efforts. They did add that limits to the second round awards is not more than 2 million in total grants and two applicants. Some of this is still new to me, so I believe they added the 8 counties and specified, and they did change it because original language said counties were eligible, so they made that more clarifying that it's entities within those counties. They removed the word pilot project. Strike pilot on page line 7. And then the other one of real note here is that notwithstanding financial limitations, the Market Development Board may consider and award grants to a wide range of projects regardless of the 1 duration or 2 type of project. So that gives a lot more flexibility in the second round. So I will open it up for you guys' comments and questions.
Barry,
NWRA, National Waste Recycling Association, has a legislative committee, which is made up of, at this point in time, it's all private sector individuals. My company's on that, Waste Management's on it, Rumpke's on it, Republic's on it. I'm trying to think. I haven't been involved directly with that committee in about 1.5 years now, so I don't know who all the membership. Greg, you're on it. Yes, sir. But anyway, they were involved originally trying to steer some of the away from some of the problems that we're having. They were unsuccessful. They've been involved with this draft bill right now, and I can just tell you that some of the same concerns that Deanna raised was raised by the legislative NWRA committee, and they sent through their lobbyists suggestions to the bill drafter sponsor, I guess it is. And I'm pleased that it, kind of mimics the same kind of concerns that are on this amendment. So hopefully, this, at least in my mind, takes care of a lot of the problems that we've had. Unless I'm missing something. So hopefully this goes through this afternoon and stays attached to the bill.
thank you, Terry.
Question, do we know why they limited it to just these counties?
Yeah.
Well,
They are the surrounding counties to Marion County.
I think I will second guess them, but this last one went after Marion County. They obviously didn't get what they wanted from my perspective. And so they widened the ring around Indianapolis to a wider range of people, which, the point I made last time was that if these entities that they're trying to get, they can apply like everybody else. But widening this ring still is insufficient in my eyes. I think it'll be statewide, but there's no way you're going to get that kind of language in this bill, I don't think. So at least by opening it up to a wider ring around Indianapolis or Marion County, you are making it more widely available, and especially the language that Deanna mentioned at the end, we would be free to consider any kind of project for any duration. And it lifts, in my mind, a lot of restrictions that are binding us right now.
I think it gives us another restriction or another headache I see coming is research and development. You know, that opens it up a lot.
Still not right, I don't think. It is what it is.
So Allison Mitchell spoke up during this meeting and then in the last meeting also, and she kept stressing, you know, what was the reason that this project request was formed in the first place? And she said that it was to increase the recycling rate for Marion County and increase recycling infrastructure efficiency. So I think that's why the focus of Marion County, and then they expanded to the donut counties. But to us, you know, we see it in a more broader sense of the whole state. So.
And Deanna sent out a, I don't know, the white paper or what it was, from Strategic Materials and Pratt Industries. You know, stressing that they needed more glass facilities in Marion County. Well, I agree, but we gave I think it was $500,000 award to Republic maybe 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Glass processing
It
upgrades.
was for a zigzag sorter that was.
And
even
2018,
and even at that point, the glass is coming, as I understand it, how the facility still doesn't meet what the glass industry wants. And it still has to go to Strategic Materials. Well, from my perspective, if the glass industry really wants material, then they need to step up to the plate and apply. I mean, I agree that there's a need for better processing for glass, but there was an opportunity this last time for them to step up and apply, and they didn't. So.
That's the product they use, that's being used, they need to meet that product, they know the specs.
Well, that's the other thing, you know,
I was making dresses and you had material, why would I ask you to give me the materials?
Yeah.
That doesn't sell.
Fact.
Just doesn't make sense.
and obviously Strategic Materials has the ability to make it a product that's accessible to the industry. And in 5 or 6 years, if Indianapolis comes online with a curbside program, there will be even more. It would seem to me that the glass industry will want to take care of its own.
What's Indy paying now for collection?
But for Flint glass,
Well, no, like the city mini, there's talk, they want to improve the recycling rate in Indy and the infrastructure. What are they paying now?
I mean, like to the public or waste management or somebody like that.
Well, the residents, what are they paying?
Yeah.
Residents, I think it was in the
It's subscription.
$90 year.
In subscription.
In subscription, yeah.
You can sign up if you'd like.
For recycling, yeah.
So it depends on.
It is voluntary if I pay $35 a quarter.
That's cheap.
I like it.
okay,
But it's voluntary. I guess I don't know why they just don't rip the Band-Aid off and do recycling, and this is what it's gonna cost. Everyone's gonna do it.
Just like every other city does in the state of Indiana.
Yes.
Well, again, you run into the restrictions of your franchise agreements. And
So they did have a solid waste needs study done in anticipation of the new agreements. They did not make it public, they didn't post it to their website, but you can request to view it.
What's it called?
I want to say solid waste needs study assessment.
The waste minimization study.
Is that what it was called? Waste minimization study?
And then it's,
So some of those answers may be in there. Is all I'm kind of referencing.
TBA. Or TBD, to be determined.
And you do-
Maybe, I haven't read it.
I think if you went back and looked to see what the glass industry is paying for Flint glass and compare to what they were paying 35 or 40 years ago, unless I've missed something in the last 5 or 6 years, not much different. You know, and when you consider that the raw material that they're competing against is sand, there's not a lot of money in glass recycling. And that's one of the reasons why companies are not going out and upgrading material on the equipment on their own, because there's no money in it. That's why we gave Republic money 15 years ago. Because the industry's not willing to do it on their own.
I have to argue your point because we do it on our own. But
it's not.
there is a cost.
It's not economically viable.
Standing on its own, it is very challenging. The one thing I want to say about glass in Indiana, the end users are readily available. And there's plenty of outlets available in Indiana for recycled glass. The majority of what we process in Dayton, Ohio goes to state of Indiana. So I have a silly question. And I'm sorry, Deanna, for interrupting you.
Go ahead.
But can our $1 million carryover be modified into this bill to make it 3 million in total grants and applicants?
That's a question we can ask, legislative assistant and our legal team.
It may be, after this round of applications, we get some more creative, more open applications that we can act upon, and we can put that money to good use. I would hate to be short $500,000 from getting a great project awarded.
So at this point, is the board kind of wanting to make any kind of statement to the legislators, or are we kind of gonna let it?
Well, I think,
They.
I agree with Mr. Burrow's point is that now, after this meeting was concluded and if there is a balance left over,
That's fair, yeah.
is that, can we keep that in the kitty, so to speak, and utilize this for either this project or our normal grant project, or one, either one, don't let it go,
well, it was allocated to be
the
awarded,
intent was to go to here, so maybe this
right?
is the better spot for it. I think that's a great point.
Terry, does the wording in the amendment cover the concerns of the recommendations from the NWRA?
I think so.
So there's really not a need to submit this to legislative body.
It's pretty close, I think.
Okay,
I have
I just want to make it clear, the board may have a different feeling than the NWRA, so I want the board's feelings.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know if the majority feel this way, but I would like to say something about, we would like this to be opened up to the entire state. Like, I don't think we should be quiet about that. It seems to be a concern for all of us, and if they say, well, they never said anything about it, so I guess it wasn't a problem for them, I mean, we could say that those funds are initiated throughout the state and we'd like to be distributed, back to the entire state. That's my opinion.
I, of course, would support that.
and I think vast majority would support that statement.
Yes.
I would like to fight about, that is true, but those monies competes with the RMDP program, which is already established and statewide. So having another statewide program for the same type of projects,
I agree with that. What Tom's saying is there was a whole intent of why they're two different, why don't you just challenge and say, the $2 million that we get annual every year,
yeah.
drive that a little bit more.
I don't care, I just.
But I don't, yeah, I think, I think the start and the initiation of this was to, get bang for the buck in a quick splash or a quick, number amount, that has,
And that obviously.
That has no-
because there's $1 million laid on the table.
yeah, but that has no fun, that does not need to be matched. There's two different, there's major criterias in this one that had it doesn't necessarily have to have a match, right?
Yeah.
And then, but it was limited to. But-
Right, fair.
I don't disagree with you there.
Must be to the
I think
choir,
that-
right?
Don't shoot the messenger.
Other than being geographic limited.
I think you're right. We only need one program, but the train has already left the station with this bill, and the intent is different than
Well, I think-
what we're dealing with.
Speaking to what Greg said too, is the pilot project aspect was what was originally different. And if so, if they remove that and they remove the limitations on type and amount. And then if you're, so now the only difference is geographic location
Well,
And the matching.
and the matching.
And then I am.
is it
Correct.
supposed to specifically be for something to do with curbside recycling? If so, it's probably misplaced.
It's not spelled out in there.
It's not spelled out.
Research is very well spelled out here.
I feel like that's what it was supposed to be, but it's not.
Research is spelled out in this draft bill because there is intent again. Guess I can say that.
So what wording does the board choose to send to the legislature with regard to 1512? I would like to know whether we can carry
The ask of the current $1 million be, how do you say that, be rolled into this?
And is there anything else?
Debbie suggested, we'd all like to see it open statewide.
Remove the geographical one.
I don't think you're gonna be able to get that change in this particular bill.
Maybe not. Either will or it won't.
I agree with Sandy. I think we need to figure out, is it supposed to be focused on residential improvements or?
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought. Didn't say that in the bill.
Yeah, I think they need to spell it out, because if not, that got to our question, the auto flop and
Mm-hmm.
In the electronic.
and the electronics, which electronics could be residential. But
But the concrete, to me, that's construction waste. That's not MSW. So. Yeah, what are we supposed to focus on?
Oh,
Well, the language in this amendment basically says we can consider anything. Am I reading it right?
Yeah, it took it from here to where it opened it up.
And we can open up another round in here if we want to. If we wanted to. Visualize that funding.
Which I don't think you're limited to now within the reasonable fiscal year. If you wanted to seek more applications in the first round.
Like
Doesn't
that
say you
million,
can't.
the
Yeah.
million. Yeah, because we still have a lot of
It has to
clarifications,
be-
a lot of these applications would give them time to. Submit another application of further consideration.
Yeah, and the fastest round for the next money is the RMDP program, which will be announced in the spring. So if you didn't add it to the 1512, certainly add it to the RMDP.
Can you do them simultaneously, like, so we can open up for the regular grant fund and then this one, and then they apply with it with intent?
Well, capacity per item would be.
Okay.
You just on my
shoulders.
It's all two heads explode over there.
Yeah, I think that would be a tough balance because we have the match on the RFDV program. And then we have the no match on 1512. I think 1512.
So they would choose which one they're applying for, and we review
Yes.
all at the same time, is what I'm saying. They choose which program they're applying for, and then we would review them all at the same time and make that decision at the board.
And they could only apply for one of them.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Can you guys handle that?
Would
Deanna?
staff be able to handle that? But
I'm not sure. I think I lost track of what exactly. we were
So
saying.
you would open up-
$1 million.
Yeah, the $1 million would be one pot of money, and then we have our other pot. They would choose which program they're gonna go into, but we'd still open up at the same time, have the deadline and review all the applications, and we decide on those applications where they would.
I can tell you what we're going to have is that most of the applicants are going to submit applications for both.
Yeah.
They gonna choose one.
We make that
You
situation.
can't do that. I mean, they can submit an application for RMDP because it's a separate process than this. This waste diversion project. And the regulations or the requirements under RMDP just basically says they can't receive a grant if they currently have a grant under that program, but they can have one under the waste diversion and one under RMDP. So they can apply for both of them at the same time. We have that now.
Yeah.
You just awarded her grants in the end of last year to people that just applied again this year, so they can apply for both. You can say you want award,
Yeah.
they can only get an award under this one and that one.
I think
They can definitely apply for both.
I'd be in favor of that.
We would have to screen the applications better, making sure, okay, this one fits this one fits that one. But that also comes more work back to you guys on the IDM side of it.
Well, and a lot of that is determined by the board and how the board interprets the statute.
I mean, from a capacity issue for our agency and our staff, you know, I mean, you're looking at folks that have the time and. You know, are part of this, you know, we did just recently have Marcus Hampton, he's our grant coordinator. He's gonna help Deanna with all of these agreements we're gonna enter into. But. I think if we. Now we have some agreements we're gonna have to work on to get those into place. We're gonna have the upcoming RMDP annual cycle. We are likely going to have another round for this 15-12. Or thankfully, it looks like they're revising it for next year. So we have time to develop applications that maybe aren't gonna be the same as what we're doing right now, that you guys just awarded money for. And if you're talking about doing another $1 million solicitation in 2023, we would need time to, you know, do we use the same forms? Do we have to give guidelines to people?
I
That
think
may or
it
may
would-
not be the same.
You know, I would suggest just put it in the RMDP fund, pot of money.
But we can't.
You can't-
They can't do that.
They can't do that. Oh, so they can't do that quick, huh? You can
I guess my initial question was, can we ask if the 1 million can roll over
Yeah.
into 15-12?
Yeah.
That would be
that's
probably
easy.
the best. Take this from 2 million to 3. Yeah. And just
I
have
was
more
supposed
money.
to ask the either or, either increase it from 2 million to 3 million. Or include language that says
Yeah.
any remaining funding from round one can be rolled into round two. And the reason that would be preferable is because if any of the awards that we made today don't pan out, we have that extra money also that could go. into
Very good point.
Very good. I like it.
So you make the big bucks.
So whatever she just said.
The remaining
Yes,
funds
I
left
got
over
it.
for the first grants be rolled into
Round two.
the round two.
And then do we set the timetable on round two? Or is that already set?
That'll be set by,
It's got
It has specific dates
Okay, I didn't know
For-
that.
in here, there's specific dates. They just changed them from 2023 to 2024.
we need to vote on that, Deanna.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to vote on that any remaining funds on the first grant period be rolled into the second round.
With Pat's,
If you're making a motion that that language be submitted.
The language be I make a motion that the language be submitted that remaining funds left over from the first grant cycle be rolled into, help me Pat, into the second grant.
4, 5, 12,
15, 12.
15, 12, sorry.
and what was your caveat, Pat, with regard to any of the awarded monies that did not,
Well, that's what.
Be utilized.
Return, yeah, say any remaining funds, so any money that wasn't utilized will fit into that definition.
the same category?
That's as opposed to just paying 3 million.
We don't have
Yeah.
a plan for anything left over.
So,
That
so if I'm going to summarize your motion, Craig, I'm going to say your motion states that you make a motion that the 1 million that was not awarded today be rolled into House Bill 1512
Any
plus any remaining
that are left
funds.
over
leftover funds from today's awards
be rolled into the second round. I don't.
be rolled into the second round, which is House Bill 1512. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Noonan. Any additional discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Hackman,
Yes,
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Ms. Wessler Henry.
Yeah.
Mr. Gratz,
Yes.
Ms. Whitehead,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz.
Yes, sir.
I vote yes. Motion carries unanimously. Yeah. Let's see, what's our next order of business?
So so is that the one item you guys want to let the legislators know? You don't want to worry about
You want to
clarification on
ask for the state.
residential or the open end to the statewide? You guys want to ask those?
I want clarification of what we're supposed, what kind of material are we supposed to focus on?
Yeah,
Any.
any is what it says there.
Okay.
That way we don't have Allison piping in, telling us that we're reading it or interpreting it wrong.
Yeah. Is there any additional comments that you want to send to the legislature then, hearing Deanna's comments?
I heard what Tom said.
So
I still.
you guys mentioned statewide, you guys mentioned, yeah, the presidential.
Well, you think this will be the end of it, or will we think there'll be a third round?
I didn't think there was
I
gonna be a
didn't
second.
anticipate, yeah, I cannot anticipate the legislature. Specifics.
Let me ask you, does this House bill include Marion County and Donut counties?
Yes, ATM.
Okay. So the second one includes Marion again, as well as Donut counties.
Yes.
I'll say it again, and I would like to remove the geographical restrictions.
Okay, would you like to make a motion on that in a second?
I move that we recommend House Bills 1517 remove geographical restrictions on applicants. It's in my head.
Ms. Hackman makes a motion that House Bill 1512 removes the geographical restrictions.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Guerin. Any additional discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Hackman,
Yes,
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Ms. Wessler Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Gratz.
Yes.
Ms. Whitehead,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz.
Yes.
I vote yes, motion carries unanimously.
And I think the justification for that, besides where the money comes from, would be the fact that applications all compete against each other. So if something from Marion County is superior than all the other applications, then I think the board would fund that. So I think it would eliminate the concern that we had on where the money's coming from, which is statewide. and it makes all grants apply on equal footing.
And bear in mind that R&D is included
Yes.
in 1512. Any other comments with regard to House Bill 1512 or proposed submittals? Anything else, Deanna? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the other. Are there? There's a lot of public here. Mr. Brasley, do you have any other comments, sir?
No.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public back there? Hearing no comments, remaining schedule is, the next regularly scheduled RMDB meeting will be Thursday, April 27th, 2023. Following will be July 27th, 2023. And our award meeting then would be October 26th, 2023. Correct, Pat? Thank you.
I will not be October 26th meeting, that's our fall break. Schools.
Everybody can plan their vacation accordingly.
I may not,
School calendar dictates us.
Any other concerns or comments from board members?
I don't know whether I'll be here on the 27th or not. I think it's the last day or two of April that I leave, but I'm checking the calendar.
Barry, anything else? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Lutz, second by Mr. Grass, very quickly. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you also very, very much.